Okay, so we are here today. Tracy Drummond,
Judy Clary.
Judy Clary, and
Geneva Cox Boykin.
Geneva Cox Boykin to discuss Miss Boykin's career as a nurse and her life. And other things. This interview is being done on behalf of Georgia State University Library for our newly established Grady Nurses collection, and Miss Boykin is our first interview. Today is May 28th, 2014, and we are at Miss Boykin's home. Welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today. So let me start at the beginning. Can you tell us, we've been talking a little while, but can you tell us again where you were born and when?
Born in a small town in Alabama, Bay Minette, Alabama.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's just south of Mobile, you said?
It's south of Mobile.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it like growing up in Bay Minette?
You know, if you were to ask me, I guess it was just as normal as any other child growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And evidently, my parents allowed me to do a lot of things, but they were very closed. My father kept up with me. You know, I had to come back from school and report.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to come home, my father go over everything I've had in school. I thought that he was totally, I'm sure he was, interested in what I was doing in school. But later I found that was his way of learning. He went to the third grade, and when his older sister saw him later, they thought he was a college graduate. I would go over every day that I came home. I would go over my materials, and he would just soak it in. He was excellent in math and English. You wouldn't have known he was a third grade person.
Mm-hmm.
However, he was lucky to get a job in a plant after they left the farm, and he became a lead worker in a plant that made turpentine.
Okay.
My mother never worked. She was a teenager almost because that was a lot to do. We still had a big garden, and we would do the garden and collect things and walk the street and to give them to people.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So,
So let's go back and talk about your dad a little and his life. So growing up, he only made it to third grade because there wasn't an opportunity.
No, there was an opportunity. They had to work.
Mm-hmm.
His
And
parents.
what kind of work did his family do?
His family. I said his father was a farm worker, and they had 15 living children, 8 girls and 7 boys.
Wow.
My daddy was the second in line. So he had to oversee because he was the oldest boy. There was one girl above him.
Okay. So they were in charge
They
while
were-
the parents were working.
That's just how it was. And evidently all of the brothers and their wives was on the farm. Until we moved out of a country land, I guess it was a wooden area, into houses that was bought from this land that was given to my grandmother. And from there we stayed until they died, and we sold the place. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I was in the high school, not up to the 9th grade. The school up to
Your
the ninth.
school went.
When I started school, up until the 9th grade.
And what kind of classes were you taught?
All basic classes. I was lucky as a child because most of our teachers were from Tuskegee, Alabama.
Okay.
One reason, because they couldn't get jobs. And a lot of these teachers filtered out in the small areas. So I got things that maybe other small kids didn't get. For instance, I knew all the sailors' song, Blow the Man Down, and all these kinds of things. I learned to diagram sentences back in the 6th grade, and I knew it. And you know, we had the class was not very large, and we could say what we wanted to say. And I must mention this. I tell you how closeted I was, and they asked about. She was talking about one subject. We were talking about the sea and the animals in the sea, and they talked about the crabs. And then somebody had said, "I said, are those the same crabs that own people?" And the class just rolled. You dumb.
That's so sweet. They didn't know any better, did they?
I said, well, I could imagine see these crabs out of the sea coming on people. But then throughout, we had all of the subjects that everybody else had. We had secondhand books because the white students would get the new books, and then we got the secondhand. But I did not know that until I came back one summer from Chicago because I went with my mother to pick up books for the other kids. I did not know that. I didn't go to I told you we didn't ride the bus. There was no buses except the one going back and forth. Didn't ride the bus. We were walking. We always walk. I walked 2 miles to school. And so it was nothing to trot
Right.
to school and back. Didn't go to the movie. There were entertainment areas that people had their little small entertainment. There was not football, a baseball by the adults. And I always went with my father to those baseball games. He did hunting. I went with him for the hunting.
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Did you help him hunt? Did you
Did I help him what?
hunt?
No, I learned to shoot a shotgun.
Uh-huh.
Did pretty well with shotgun. And then, what I said, going back and forth and visiting and playing, that was my thing.
Okay.
And then I had almost, since I was only child, all my other folks had 4 and 5 children. I had all the new toys. Every toy that came out, I had it. I got the first radio of the little community. My daddy got me a radio. I used to listen to Eddie Cantor on things. And in that neck of the woods, there was not the jumping and jiving stuff.
Okay.
So I grew up with hillbilly stuff.
Okay.
And I didn't know all that other stuff. And my mother was too young to know, so that's where we were. Didn't go to a movie because the movie was segregated. I went to the movie one time when Judy Garland played, was that
Oh, The Wizard of Oz?
yeah, Wizard of Oz. That's the first time they took us as the team to the Wizard of Oz.
Well, that's a great first movie to see, though.
Oh no, we saw other movies.
Okay.
There were people who came, individual people who showed movies to the school. That's where the people went at night to the movies.
Oh, okay.
They made money that way.
Okay. And then that was just for the black community?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So what kind of movies do you remember seeing
A lot of
earlier?
cowboy stuff. It was the central things that you could take your children to. Gene Autry and all those folks. I knew the whole bit with those kind of things.
Did they show movies with black actors or black filmmakers, or did
No,
y'all?
no. It wasn't. That wasn't out at that time.
Okay.
I don't. If they did, I didn't know about it.
Okay. Okay.
They were mostly cowboy things and easy romance with a lot of these old actors, that kind of stuff. And everything else was in the school in that little community. All right, then I left to go to Daphne. That's where I got exposed to a lot of the sciences. I fell in love with physics and microbiology. They had football, they had cooking, and they had singing. That you would go to these various things.
And Daphne, that's where the private's
That
high
was the
school.
private. That's that private.
And what was the name of that high school?
Baldwin County Training School?
Bowen County Training School.
Yes.
Okay. And was it for girls only?
No,
It was
boys and girls.
boys
There
and
was
girls.
the people came in who lived in this community. This came like they came to school. But they had dormitories for these outside people. We were the outside people who came in from other little towns and so forth. And they always, to me, they were always full. I don't know what would happen if they were not, didn't have enough room. I guess they went to the other places, that kind of stuff. And when I went there, because I was dumb, I was really dumb, and my father opened a little account across the street so I could have, if they didn't feed me and give me enough to eat. And the girl said, "What is wrong with you, fat girl? You better get in here and eat and stop this." And then for clothing, he opened up a little account so I can take my clothing to be done over there. And they said, "You better learn how to iron." So I started ironing when I was there. I ironed all the way up my arm.
So would you say you were spoiled as a child?
I don't think so, but I was a dumb child.
Well, it sounds like I don't like the word dumb. I think you were maybe sheltered.
Maybe that's what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Don't I don't like because you're very smart. You're very smart.
So what would happen? It's true and all of this. So, but I learned from these other girls, but we were almost never alone unless we was in the class, because they oversaw us as though we were children and that kind of stuff. And then there was a house mother who in the building dormitory taught us how, be sure how to place the sieve and how to eat, and we had people who do the food for us and that kind of stuff. And it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And going to church in the little small town, we would go in little groups.
Okay.
And then after I graduated, I was 17 when I graduated.
Well, can I back up and say, were the girls at your school just as encouraged to pursue the sciences as the boys were?
Well, not. I guess there were contents in the courses that you had to take.
Okay.
It was content
Okay.
that you had to so many sciences and you had to do. I don't think it had to do with trying to encourage.
Okay. Okay.
Because you had to take some things in farming, cooking. I never cooked, so I just watched. I would sit there and watch everything, and then farming how to plant. See, they had groups with this and group with that. It was a comprehensive place.
And both boys and girls were taught the same things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes, like homemaking, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then after I graduated, my father had selected a little small school for me to go to. The reason I say I came in nursing accidentally, I had a very wonderful friend. See, most of my friend was more out of the dormitory. I got to know people out, because you were in the whole body of students, and in class you just found people. There was a young girl that the minute I got there, we became friends. And when she had worked as a nurse aide in the hospitals, and she said, I always wanted to be a nurse, so forth. Well, I had been in a hospital one time. They had my tonsils removed. I was 9 years old. I didn't know anything about any hospitals. And then at home we had an old family, a Caucasian old family doctor who would treat us like babies and that kind of stuff. Because my mother, anytime I would sneeze, she would bring me, I don't know what I would do if anything happened to my only child, that kind of stuff. So this friend of mine said, why don't you ride with us to Grady? Because I am going to enroll in the nursing school.
And what year was this? What year was this?
When I was finishing high school.
Okay.
That was, I have to track back, I was 17.
Okay.
I have to look at dates, so I don't pin me to dates, overall dates I know, but individual. And I called my parents, could I go? And my father said, let me send you some money so you'll have your own monies. So I rode with them down South Alabama to Grady. She was to take the tests, the math tests and English tests. They gave a battery of tests. And I was just going to sit with her because I'd never been out anywhere, really, anywhere. And it was just marvelous to me to go to a big city and see things. I thought it was wonderful. So when we got there, they were passing out sheets. I was in the room with her, and the guy who was doing the testing, he said, you here? I said, no, I'm here with my friend. He said, would you like to take the test? And I said, well, he said, it's not a problem, just take it. I aced the math and the science test, and it scared me. Well, I just passed it, because I had a good background. And we turned all the papers in. He said, And then she failed.
Oh no.
Failed, all of them. I was sick. Here I was, a little 17-year-old kid, scared to death. He said, would you think you want to become a nurse? I said, no. He said, why don't you try? I said, let me call my daddy. He said, if you think you want to do it, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed over a couple of, they left over a couple of days because when they did a physical exam on me, I had a heart murmur.
Mm.
And I've had a cardiologist since I was a student because I have what is known as a leaky heart. And I haven't had any problems, but I've had it all along the way. He said, we can fix that. But you know, we got back. She never spoke to me again.
Oh.
It just hurt my heart. She said, I guess I'm through with you.
Oh gosh.
Can you imagine? And then after that following fall, I started at Grady
Okay.
in 48.
Okay.
See, I know that. I know
Okay.
that name, 1948. That was about 30 or more students. And we went through our regular orientation. She can talk about the orientation period.
Okay.
And after we left that, then we started in the clinical areas with teachers and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, why don't, so this was a big experience though, because you've ended up in a program that you did not set out to
Yeah, to
join,
do.
and it's far away from the small towns you grew up in
Yes.
and from your family for the first time.
Yes.
What was that like for you? That must have been overwhelming.
Well, it was overwhelming, but my father lectured to me. When I first went to this high school, he said, I want you to look at your mother and me. He said, you are losing your best friends because nobody else cares about you. He said, just be sure this is your best friend. But when I came to Atlanta, my father said to me, try to participate and be around people with the background. The reason I use dumb, because he used that a lot. But don't party with these people who've been accustomed to big cities and partying.
Mm-hmm.
He said, because until you learn, he said, you don't know much about this world and people. And I think it'd be wise if you pal around with those people. So all while I started nursing, I was a friend with a girl from Mobile, one from Chattanooga, and they were with the same mentality I had.
Mm-hmm.
And because there were parties and things, the school had parties for the same thing, parties for the college people, the boys, from Morehouse and
Okay,
Morris Brown, that
right.
kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we would go together.
Mm-hmm.
And if there were other parties, I know there was other few parties outside. And one of the girls from Chattanooga, she said, now, if we go to this party, we have to smoke. And we don't know how to smoke. So she decided to go and buy some cigarettes, some Campbell's, so that we can learn how to smoke. I smoked Camel and I was out. I couldn't go to the party. That is the first and the last time I had a cigarette.
That's a great
They
story.
told me I was the wrong one to smoke. And then we really got into the areas. We were busy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the school of nursing busy.
Well, what was the address for the school and the dorms? Was it close to where the hospital is today? Were y'all in the area?
Yeah, it was in the area.
Okay.
There were several domes. They built a new one. We ended up getting into one of the new domes, but there was domes on both sides of the hospital. Domes for the white students and domes for the black students.
Okay.
But a lot of the classes, that new building where we were in with the black students, they had more classrooms. So the white students would be over there for class.
Mm-hmm.
And like Bernice Dixon taught everybody pharmacology. There was a Dr. Hunter from Georgia State who did the psychology. There was a nutritionist. See, all those people were the same folks who
Okay.
taught us.
Okay.
And at that time, they didn't have any black instructors
Mm-hmm.
other than the head nurses on the floor.
Okay.
So all of our teachers were the same. We got the same content.
Now, did white and black nurses go to classes separately, or would you have?
Some classes, but a lot of classes we were together.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And I don't remember which ones there were.
Okay.
Then because the clinical practice schedule
Mm-hmm.
was dictated by the head nurses, we had to get to class on time, but we had assignments. worked. I'm sure the teachers worked with them to tell them the type of patients that we needed,
Right.
so that we could correlate that with our sciences and that kind of stuff. And it was later when the colleges really got involved, because a lot of the science and things early was taught within the school itself. And Bernice ought to tell you about that, because I don't remember that area. And then the psychiatric areas, some people went to Millersville and some people went somewhere else. Forget the psychiatric content. Any
Okay.
question you want to ask
So,
me?
so did you go? I know in my research I saw where the black students went to Spelman when the white students went to Georgia State. Do you remember any of that?
I was not in that group when they went to Spelman, because that was
Okay.
later.
That was later?
That was later. Because I didn't have that college contact when I was there.
Okay.
See, you
All
talking
the
about 48.
sciences were taught right there
Right
at
there.
Grady when you went in 48.
When I was there.
I think that started in the 50s. I
It's-
think you're right.
Yeah, it started late.
It started later.
later.
Okay.
Okay.
And all the others, that's why we had Dr. Hunter from Georgia State, who did a lot of stuff for
Okay.
us. And then the colleges came in later, where the group went to Spelman, where the others went. And then for the psychiatric area, some went to Millersville and some went to here and there. They went to
Right.
various places.
Right, because there was no psychiatric
No.
ward at Grady
No.
back in the early
Back
days.
in the early time, it's not.
Can you tell us about the hospital? Because this is prior to 1958 when the hospital that we see today is standing. So you were there when the old hospital was there and all of the annexes and stuff. Can you kind of give us an idea about that facility?
Before it was an old hospital, both white and black, old hospital. Where there were 6 floors, 7 floors. I don't remember how many with the white group, with floors with patients. They had a pediatric section, they had medical, surgical. Come to think, I don't know where the OR was. But there was, from one hospital to another, there was a tunnel.
Okay.
You ever heard people talk about that tunnel?
Mm-hmm.
That there were combined areas for the tunnels. In there were central supplies and all the supply areas, the operating rooms and all of that from that tunnel going back and forth. So you didn't have to go outside when you were in the hospital, because you get in the tunnel and go back and forth.
Okay.
So the tunnel connected the different buildings that became the hospital over the years.
It might have that with the new one. It did,
Right.
because it was no longer. When it was no longer, I don't remember when it was no
Right.
longer.
And when you worked on the patient wards, you only took care of black patients
Only took
when
care
you
of
were a
black-
student.
when
Is
I
that
was a
right?
student.
Okay, so there was a black hospital and a white
white
hospital.
hospital,
So
yes.
they were actually 2 separate buildings.
They were 2 separate buildings.
Okay.
And did staff, or did the nurses say separate based on which hospital? Would you have only been allowed to work with the?
We just worked in where the black students
Okay.
worked with the black patient, the white students worked with the white patient.
Okay.
Now, the doctors and nurses that were not part of the School of Nursing that staffed the hospital, did they work in both, or was that also
That was all,
segregated?
except the doctors.
The doctors did both.
The doctors did both.
But the nurses.
Only in last years when they had black doctors at Morehouse, but we
Right.
always had the Emory doctors.
Right.
So the doctors were everywhere.
Well, you said you started there in 1948 at Grady as a student, and that would have been 2 years after the school integrated.
No,
No,
didn't
no.
integrate till 1964.
Oh, 64. I'm
Uh-huh.
okay. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
I'm 20. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
My apologies.
Okay, that's right.
So there were 2 Grady's
It was 2 Grady's.
when she was
Okay.
there.
Well, did you ever feel? I mean, I guess I feel like I should ask this question. I feel like it's an important question to ask.
Yes, sure.
As a black student, did you ever feel like maybe the facilities were better for the white students, or the attention paid to the white students was better?
I didn't think about it.
You just didn't think about it.
I didn't think about it.
And no one ever discussed this in your.
Well, we had your own program and everything. You didn't discuss
Okay.
it.
Okay.
The difference now, the white students were called Miss, whatever they were.
Right.
And the black students were called Nurse.
Okay.
Like, I was maybe Nurse Cox. If she was white, she was Miss Cox.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know
Uh-huh,
that.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, we didn't think about it because I got to know, we got to know a lot of students going to class. And one thing too, there were two students who were Caucasian who were named Cox. And we sort of communicated. And I said, we sort of talked a lot. And you got to know people that way.
So you got to know the white students, is what you're
Yes,
saying?
uh-huh,
Okay. But did you go to parties together
No.
or any social thing?
No.
So there was no social
There
thing
was
together?
no.
Some of the classes were combined, but the hospital was separate.
Separate.
But yet you could see each other in the halls or in
That
the
kind-
tunnel and things
Something
like that.
That's
Okay.
true. Because we also had a tour in Central Supply. That's where they did all of the sterilization, and we had to do that. You probably didn't come through that.
No, they didn't have it when I
We
was
did
there.
gloves. We did the autoclaving
Okay.
and all that type of thing. You didn't get packages. It was later when you got things in packages
Uh-huh.
that you learned to do all of those kinds of things.
So you took the instruments and all that came back from the operating room and cleaned them and sterilized them and packaged them
It
in
would be
Central
another
Supply.
group. Well, I never involved.
do that?
I was,
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it was done by another section, but they
Okay.
had the small autoclaves in the operating room. That was done from there.
And they had them on the floor even when I went.
I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's a whole new world to me. I don't know a lot about
Uh-huh.
nursing
Yeah.
or nursing programs.
One of the things I would like to get a feel for is I know that when we did our clinicals, you said your assignments were done by the head nurse.
Yes.
When I did my clinicals, I think the instructors, Betty Blake and y'all, decided where we would be and what patients we had. And that was a big change because the head nurses really used you as their staff. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's true.
That is something that's important that I think we need to capture because the education that nurses get today is so different than what we went through. Our experience working in the hospital was a major part of our education. Can you kind of talk about your experience working in the hospital, the hours you worked, the direction you got, the responsibilities you got, things like that?
Okay. I am sure that the teachers gave instruction to the head nurses. We had hours like 7 to 3:30, 12 to 6, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Those we were not into the 7 to 7 business. It was the old-fashioned 7 to 3. The difference is that you might have started in the morning and got off at 12 because there were certain classes, left to go to a class to 12 to 6 and that type of thing.
Okay.
Evidently, the head nurses were oriented to our needs because we did get the type of patients that we were able to discuss to know about. And you really knew about it because if that's a patient with congestive heart failure, you knew because you had content to talk about that.
Okay.
And then we made a lot of rounds with the doctors. We made a lot of rounds. But you really had, when you had patients, I'm talking about 6 to 7 patients. The difficulty was for me to interpreting some of the needs of the patient. And it took me a while to really enjoy nursing because I remember one time I used to be afraid of the patients too. That's why I understood these students. One of the patients told me he wanted to take a leak. I thought he was going to leap out of this. I ran and got everybody. There's a patient who's going to leap out of this room. Sleep. And they said, "Little nurse, he wants to urinate."
Oh. We heard a lot of terms taking care of patients that were new to us, didn't we? I know. And now we can laugh about it. I know.
And then when At night we know I forgot later on in the later 2 or 3 years we did night duty, still mostly with the supervisor. There were white supervisors in the emergency rooms and those kinds of things. There was one supervisor. Every time she would see me, she thought I was anemic. At night, I had a yellow cast to my skin. I don't know how many times she sent me to the emergency clinic to get me checked out because I was uh, like this color.
Uh-huh.
She said, "Honey, are you sick?" "No, I'm not sick." And they would send me, I bet about once a quarter, they send me to the emergency clinic and said, "Are you back here again?" They think I'm sick.
They were worried about you.
Yeah, because in my face had a hue, sort of
Uh-huh.
a pinkish hue to it. And there were other students who looked just like me, but I think I must have had some undertones because there was a lot of racial mixing in my family. So these overtones would come out that you wouldn't see everywhere.
You just confused everybody, didn't you?
And then at night, when we made rounds, they let us do a lot of rounds. Then I saw things I didn't know existed. I know one night I almost fell out because this lady's covers came off, and there was a growth in her vagina area, and I thought it was an animal.
But I bet you do see a lot of things being a nursing student that, I mean, that's because that's kind of what you're trained to do is help people with.
Well, I wanted to help her, and her covers came off.
Oh.
Oh, oh, oh.
That was a lot more fun.
We saw a lot of stuff as naive young ladies that we didn't know existed, didn't we? Uh-huh.
Did y'all go back and tell the other nurses, like, oh my gosh, guess what I just saw?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's how you survived.
Yeah.
That's how you survived.
That's how you
would go
survived.
back to the dormitory and share your experience, and you grew because you realized that you were not the odd person. Everyone else didn't know that either.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
But I had a mixture of people in my class who had been out of school and might have started college out of that 40-some group. And there were a lot of folks older than me. So, what young. At one time I was the president of my class and that kind of stuff. And now Bernice doesn't know this, but we went on a strike.
Was she the director?
No.
Okay.
No, she became director of nursing education, not of nursing,
Okay.
because she had Hammett. You heard about?
Oh, yes, Frances Hammett.
Frances Hammett,
Right.
and then Nancy Wooten was in the assistants and all those kinds of things.
Okay. So you went on strike as a student nurse?
And I led it.
Tell me about that. I want to hear about that.
Well, we felt that we were not given time. We were really cheap labor.
Mm-hmm.
When you finish your patient care, you had to go in the utility room and scrub up the pots and pans and the bedpans and autoclave them in the area. You did all the trivial stuff. And we had nurse aides and all this kind of, but you really did the bulk of the work. And we thought they needed to do something about it. And we went in our class meeting, and there was a group of students in the class to make the others behave. We beat you if you don't go on the strike. To talk about what our needs were. And do you know they heard us?
Really?
Yeah, because you were looking at a workforce, and they decided they were not going to do until they listened to you. So we had the rector and all these people sort of talk to us.
How long did you strike?
About a week, almost a week.
Really? So it was substantial. I mean, it lasted a whole week.
Yeah.
And was it the white and black students?
I know.
Okay, it's just
No,
the black students.
Just the black students.
Okay.
Okay. And They talked to us. But, by the way, we were working in between time, but we were balking on certain things. And, you know, we
Okay.
didn't leave the area completely.
Okay.
You didn't leave the patients without care.
Because right now, you, by the way, legally, you can only strike so long because the government, you won't be allowed, they'll jail you.
Okay.
You know that?
No. As a nurse?
And nurses right now, the nurses can't just walk off.
Okay.
Oh, no. No. And they'll get jailed in a minute. Because see, it's patient care.
Right.
Although when they do striking, this group was march, the next group was march, but not everybody. You don't lead the patients.
Right.
It's a different kind of strike.
Okay.
And to make it a different kind of strike now, you have the American Nurses Association that sort of helps to channel salaries and these kinds of things. Salary was really low, real low salaries. Anything else you want to ask me about the school per se?
Okay.
Well, I just want to know, did you ever have any downtime? Were you ever able to explore Atlanta and
Oh yeah,
you learn about this?
Oh, you had.
Because y'all were close to Auburn Avenue and
I never went on.
You
that.
never went? Okay.
I went maybe 1 or 2 times.
Okay.
Because there were bars and things like that. There used to be a lot of stuff down there. And my daddy told me, don't get involved in things you don't know about. And when I would get there, I remember, you know, it's amazing. When you teach, you have children, you can teach them certain things. And sometimes it resonates with you. And then we didn't go too far at night. Because Daddy said, no. Then I had a grandfather who was a deacon, and he believed what you should, the do's and don'ts. Even though I didn't get involved, it was in my head. It was in my head that these are things you just didn't do.
well, did your parents ever come visit you in Atlanta
Yeah.
when you were in school there?
Yes,
Okay.
they had to, you know, they didn't have they had a car late, so somebody had to bring them.
Okay.
But I would go home every so often. I don't
Okay.
remember the time.
Well, and you said you were an only child for 12 years.
12 years.
And then,
Every 2 years they had those other children.
okay, so there was,
And when I graduated from high school, my parents couldn't come to the high school because my mother was having that last baby, that boy I showed you here, Harold. And then my daddy had broken his leg, but my grandmother was there. And then my first escort for my prom was my uncle. Where did I leave my pictures? It's somewhere around here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
well, and did you have a follow-up?
I wanted to just a little more about working in the hospital as a student. Did you, at one time, the student nurses had assignments in the hospital 6 days a week and only a half a day off, like on Sundays. My mother went to nursing school in 1941, so she was 7 years before you, not at Grady, but at a diploma school up in Delaware. And she only had half a day off. But you had more time off? Did you go to school just Monday to Friday?
No. We work weekends too.
That's what I was wondering.
Well, we work weekends too.
Okay.
If we had, you might, right, I'm not too sure how many days we have. Bernice might remember. I am not too sure. But I know I could go to church.
Right.
Which you didn't mind so much when you weren't on a mule cart.
I hated church.
Okay. And I'm thinking they built Piedmont dorm for the black student nurses around 1940 something. No, that was feedback.
That was
They
feedback.
built Hirsch in 22, feedback in 40, and Hirsch was the nurses' home, and it wasn't just for student nurses. It was for nurses who worked at the hospital.
Worked at the hospital too.
Feedback was for the white student
Yes.
nurses, and then they built Piedmont
For the black.
for the black, and that was in the 40s though, because they got the money because of the war effort.
Yes.
So do you think you might have been in Piedmont?
I was in, yes, I was in Piedmont.
Because that would make sense to me.
Yes, I was in Piedmont.
You were in Piedmont.
Yes.
Now, I was in Piedmont. Piedmont was my dorm as a freshman, first year and second year, and then seniors went to Armstrong.
Yes, that's right. Then Armstrong was built later.
Right. And Armstrong had air conditioning, and none of the others had air conditioning. The hospital wasn't even air conditioned until 1968. So we did not have air conditioning, but Piedmont was a lovely dorm.
Yeah, it was.
I loved Piedmont.
Yes.
Yes, Piedmont. Okay, so you and I, we probably were in the same room, Miss Boykin, and we didn't know it.
Didn't know it.
20 years later.
Isn't that something? Didn't know it.
Well, let me ask, because in our first conversation, you mentioned the tuition. So I'm curious to know,
I don't know about how much tuition.
well,
But
not
you
how
didn't pay-
much.
You didn't pay much tuition.
You didn't, were your parents able to help you with that, or?
Yes, I didn't.
Okay.
They had to.
Okay,
And then my father sent me a stipend. I had money.
okay, for just little things you needed throughout the
Yeah.
year. Okay, but your parents were in a position
Yeah,
to afford that.
my
Okay,
father
that's
had-
great.
My father had a really a stable job.
Okay.
I have to know. Thinking about that, did you work for pay? We were allowed to, because you might have had a different schedule, going to class 6 days a week or working and only having Sundays off. We went Monday to Friday to classes and clinicals, and on the weekends we were allowed to work 1 8-hour shift for pay. And that's how many of us earned our spending money. Did you have that opportunity? So you did not get any money working or whatever?
Didn't get any money working.
Okay. In my research, what I discovered was that the nurses actually got a stipend when the school first opened of $9 a month, but their uniforms they had to buy themselves. And that was increased to $11 a month in about 1915, and then it was increased to $15 a month, which lasted until 1933. And in 1933, the stipend went away, but the hospital bought your uniforms and laundered them. Do you remember about your uniforms? What did they look like, and how you took care of them?
The aprons were the same. I'm sorry I don't have that old.
Okay.
But the white students had the blue.
The blue dress with the
Dress.
white apron?
Yes, white
Okay.
apron. And the black students had the pink and the white.
Okay.
And the caps were different.
Yes. If I remember, your cap was a little more elongated,
That's right. It was
and
little-
ours was a little crunchier,
Yes.
shorter.
almost like I don't even all that stuff is in storage.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then when the schools integrated, they
They
did
put
the new cap
They
and
put them together. Put them
Okay.
together.
Okay. And did this hospital provide your uniforms and wash them for you and
The
starch
student
them?
uniforms?
Your student
The
uniforms.
hospital did that.
Okay, that's the same as us.
I would've been
Thank
bad.
goodness.
I would be in bad shape.
We all would have been. They finally switched to the students had to buy their uniforms and wash them themselves.
When did they start?
In 1969.
Oh, really?
And we were so glad we had the old ones because we didn't have to launder and wash them. Even though they were very old fashioned and starched, we loved our uniforms.
And
We
another
loved them.
thing, you look good in them.
We did.
Right.
You look good. You were clean. You had the aprons were nicely starched, and you look good.
Right. Well, there's
We did.
a lot of confusion in hospitals now because everybody wears scrubs,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that there are different colors of scrubs for different positions. But somebody going in, especially if you're sick or you're worried about somebody sick, you don't know the differences. So how do you feel? How do y'all feel about the change? I'll ask, and from going from a more traditional uniform, or at least a uniform that clearly identified you as the
Yeah,
nurse,
not now.
to
How do you
scrubs.
feel
How
about
do you
it?
feel
With
about
the
it?
uniforms or not?
Yeah, the scrubs.
I think about germs, just contaminated, because they go everywhere with them, and because when I go to for my physical exam over there, everybody's walking down the street with jackets on and everything. I think it's germy.
You think it's germy?
Yeah. I have to agree with her. You see scrubs in the grocery store, you see them at the daycare picking up the kids, and our uniforms were to be meant to be worn in the hospital only.
And there was a very sort of strict, like, guidelines or code for that. Like, you didn't wear this to run your errands after work, you would change before you would.
Well, right, if you went to the store around in there, you might have had your uniform on, but you didn't see student nurses in the downtown with all their uniforms
Yeah,
on.
we were not allowed to wear our uniforms as student nurses anywhere but in the hospital or back and forth to the dorm and in the general vicinity.
Yes.
Okay.
We were not even allowed to wear pants.
That is
Remember
right.
that?
You couldn't even wear pants.
We couldn't wear pants, and I graduated in 1970, and when we left the dormitory, we had to be in our uniform going to the hospital, or we had to be in a skirt or a dress, and we had to check out with the
Watch your
house
eyes.
mother. Yeah.
So you meant you couldn't even wear, like, as a representative of the school, as a student of the school, you couldn't even wear.
I couldn't
pants.
go on a date wearing pants
No, you
to
didn't wear
the
pants.
Fox. I could not go to a picnic unless I had
So is-
permission saying it was a recreational activity that I could get permission to wear pants.
So did you have a house mother in
Yes.
the dorm
Yeah,
that sort of,
they had
okay.
house mothers.
She sat at
Okay.
the first floor and you had to sign in and out. You had to say where you were going and we had hours. So like,
You had
if
hours.
you remember, our study hours were from 7 to 9 and you had to be in your room studying or in the library studying, nowhere else. The phones were turned off and the operator operated the phones and no phone calls came in from 7 to 9 unless it was an emergency.
Wow.
You didn't make it.
If you heard the
it was
phone ring
restructured.
between 7 and 9, because there were no cell phones back then. If
Right.
you heard the phone ring between 7 and 9, every door would open, every head would come out of the door with a look of gloom because we knew it was not good.
Right.
My mother had emergency surgery one time and the phone rang and we all looked out the door and the person whose room was next to the phone. There was only one phone per floor that
That
we
is
all
true.
shared. If you can imagine this in this day and age, one phone for all
no
these
cell
girls.
phones.
And everybody looked out and they said, Judy Lee, and it was like the walk of death down that hall to answer the phone between 7 and 9 because you knew it wasn't going to be good news
Right,
that the operator put through. So
Okay. Interesting.
and then lights were supposed to be out by 11, but if you were quiet in your room,
No,
you could
would,
study.
No, you would pad the door. You couldn't
Exactly,
see
so the light wouldn't come under the door.
So you had your tricks.
We had tricks, didn't we? Yeah. But you couldn't be up and down the halls or
Okay.
anything. It was quiet. And then we had curfew. So if you went out during the week, you literally had to be back in your room by 7. And then 2 evenings a week, you could go out till 10, I think it was. And you had to have permission to stay out after 11, even on a Saturday and a Sunday.
You
We
really
were
structured.
sheltered.
It was
Yeah.
structured.
It was
Yeah.
very structured. And it's, looking back now, then we kind of thought it was a little strict as young people in a big city.
Well, I didn't think too much about it because that's how I grew
You
up.
grew up.
Uh-huh.
I liked it because it gave me an excuse not to be tempted or for people to say, oh, come along, and say, no, I've got study hours,
Yeah.
I've got a curfew. So it gave me boundaries that I could blame it on the boundaries, not
Yes.
me.
Yes.
So I liked it.
See, I was already in the boundary.
And you were already in the
And yes.
boundaries. And I was from a pretty strict family too. But then, I wanted to go see Gone with the Wind. I had never seen it. And here I was in Atlanta. So my now husband, who was then my boyfriend, wanted to take me. And we could not get back to the dorm by the end of curfew because it was a long movie.
It's a very long.
So I had to get special permission and go in front of Miss Boykin and Miss Dixon and all and say, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to be. And they said, okay. And a security guard had to come from the hospital to let me in because that dorm was locked at 10
You didn't get in.
to let me in. And I did that once in 3 years.
Okay.
So it was
I-
very structured.
But you could get out if you needed to, like if there had been a fire or something. You
Oh,
would,
absolutely.
Okay,
that's-
you could like
that's-
push
that's
out.
different.
Okay.
But we had fire drills and all
we
those
did.
other
Okay,
things.
All
okay,
hours of the night.
Oh, that was awful. 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
it's having fire drill.
Now, I don't know if you did this, but the no pants rule, we would go over to the hospital on Saturday mornings because it was the only time they made pancakes. And we didn't have to go to class, so we would roll up our pajamas and put a trench coat on because we were not allowed in pants. And we would go eat pancakes in our trench coats on Saturday morning because it looked like you were wearing a dress or a skirt. Come back to the dorm and go back to bed. Did you do that?
No.
Okay.
There was a sub area from the tunnel where the black students ate in this faculty.
Okay.
It was almost directly under the administrative building for the hospital.
Okay.
And the cooks who worked there would be sure you got the food and so forth and so on. So if they had chicken or special things, they may give you one piece or whatever. One day, and I used to be very thin. I got heavy through the years. I went to get another piece of chicken, and she said, that's all you're gonna get. That's all you're gonna get." Even though I was quiet, I was a troublemaker. I took my plate and went around upstairs into the administrative area with the assistant superintendent of the hospital. I said, they wouldn't give me another piece of chicken.
You were a troublemaker, weren't you?
He said, I'll go with you. Come on. He went. They had a fit because the assistant superintendent of the hospital, Mr. Walker, was coming with me. He said, "Give this child some more chicken." Oh, and they gave me the dirty eye. And you know what? The other students came up to get chicken.
They couldn't say no.
Oh, they wanted. We're supposed to eat.
Yeah.
But the chicken was delicious. Oh, the best chicken ever.
They had good food.
Good food, very good. Good food. We had enough to eat, but I didn't want the other stuff. I wanted another piece of chicken.
Did you have a nickname when you were a student
No.
nurse? Did you know what Miss Dixon's nickname was?
No.
She told us that. You want me to
What'd
tell you?
What do I?
Killer.
Oh, that Killer
Kilcrease.
That's right. But she was strict, and I mean she was a whirlwind with whatever. You know what changed her?
What?
Getting married.
Okay.
Because when she married Tony, she became a different person, and she was mean as a snake, but she eased that she had her two girls, and he was killed by a drunk driver.
I know.
So she became a different person.
Yeah. She was so strict, Tracy, that for a long time students were not allowed to be married. You had to live in the dormitories and you could not be married.
That's
that
true.
was the
That's
case
true.
when you
Same
went.
thing.
And in the 60s, they finally allowed students to enter who were married or to become married when they were students. I chose to get married the last quarter before we graduated because my classmates were my sisters then. And I didn't want to get married down in Florida where I didn't know anybody. I wanted my classmates to come to my wedding. So we were in senior rotation, and we had to be the charge nurse on the floor as a senior nurse during the
See, she
Saturdays.
got part of being the nurse in an area. Go
in
ahead.
the that's all right. In the Sundays and the evening shifts, whatever. And my husband was being commissioned. This was during the Vietnam War. He was being commissioned into the Air Force on one Saturday. He was going to graduate from Georgia Tech on a Saturday, and we were going to be married on a Saturday. I went to Miss Dixon and I said, I have all of these events. Can we work with this? And she said, you may have one Saturday off. Pick which one you want to attend. She would not let me go to my husband's graduation, my wedding, and his commissioning. I had to pick one. He was able to change the commissioning to a Friday, so I got to go to that. We got married on a Saturday, and I missed his graduation. She was mean.
She's mean, but she is as different nice.
Yes, of course she's 92.
with all of the things that happened to her
Right.
that made a difference.
Yes.
And then she had younger teachers who challenged her. You know, you wouldn't challenge anybody. They tell you what it is, and because it really scared them when we went on a partial strike.
And if I had been braver, maybe like you were, I was not a troublemaker. I did whatever I was told. I was on scholarship. I felt like I was just so special to be there.
Yes.
I think now I would have said, no, we need to work this out.
Yeah.
He graduated #1 from his class in Georgia Tech, and I was not able to attend. So I have, I've forgiven her for that, but I wish I had been there.
Right.
Yes, you think,
Yeah.
and how mean people were. You could talk about it, because when I had to wash those pots and pans and scrub it, I rebelled. I was probably the only one who rebelled about it. And the head nurse said, "This is your assignment." I was so mad I didn't even eat. And I said, "I don't do pots and pans." She said, "Who does pots and pans?" Yeah, my mama did.
And that's a major difference of when you went to nursing school and when I went.
Yes.
You had to do more of what I call the menial tasks.
Yes.
Not the,
Housekeeping stuff.
yes, not
Only thing we didn't have sweep.
yes. You did you have to cook for your patients?
No.
See, my mother did when
See,
she
that's
went.
way back in.
Yeah.
The difference is with the other menial tasks.
Right.
But everything else was done. You had housekeeping and all those
Okay.
kinds of things.
So you had more of the cleaning and,
Yes.
and things like that.
Yeah, being sure the dust and with the patient's bedside, they said they were just keeping the environment tidy, but we were doing other stuff.
You were doing that.
And when the supervisors and everybody came around, and the doctors, key doctors, you had to stand. Did you ever?
Okay. Yeah, they
You-
didn't do that when I
Uh-huh.
was there.
You had to stand to acknowledge that they were present.
These memories come back, don't
It's come
they?
back. You still think about those kinds of things. Any other question you want to ask me about?
Well, I
I
want
think
to.
I'm in there.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so you graduated from Grady
In 51.
in 51, and then what happened? Then,
When I graduated in 51, I stayed on in Grady to work as an employee for about 2.5 years. I worked the pediatric clinic, and it was still separate. And then I did premature infants. And after about a year, I went into male medical nursing as a head nurse. Was there.
and can you explain for somebody that might be listening, what is male medical nursing?
It was areas where only male patients, see, the patients were separated.
Okay,
They had an area for the females, and right now they're everywhere.
yeah,
And at that time, they had them separate, male. Okay.
okay.
And then I told you I worked the pediatric clinic, and I did premature infants. Then about 2.5 years, I decided that I knew I was going to, because I had a diploma certificate, meaning that, it was not a 4-year, and I had wanted to do further things in nursing. So what I did, I got a list of all of the schools. I don't think Emory had they might have had, I don't remember.
I don't know.
Might not have been able to go to it either.
Yeah, true.
That's true. I don't know. So I got a list of about 5 schools in the Midwest, in northern states, who offered a baccalaureate degree. And because Georgia State didn't have anything, I wouldn't have been able to go to that at that time either. And I had to work because I didn't have the money to go to the school. So I was going to the schools to look around what hospital was near that I could work. See, because I worked and went to school part-time. And I put them all in a basket and shook the basket up. Came up with DePaul University, out from Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. Okay, you heard about the biggies there. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I wrote, and to say that I was interested in did they have any openings? So I got an answer right away. because I had given my background. The evidence director must have known something about grading. So at the first tap, I was hired. And then when I got there, I left the train station and went right to the area because I thought I would be living in the dormitory. I had all my stuff with me. So when I got there, I met with the director. And she said that, I had already an assignment that I would do day duty. And it was the time when all the other nurses were graduating. They were getting a lot of new, I think that time they had about 10 or 12 new RNs. So when I got there, she said, she didn't realize I was black. This hospital was on a north side over by Northwestern campus. It was an elite hospital. I mean, practically most of the patients were rich. And she said that we don't have a place for you. Our dormitory is full. And she said, I'll get a place for you. So there was a little small black hospital about almost adjacent to Northwestern University. So she called, so they got a place for me there. And she said, the other thing is that I want you to work night duty. I said, no, 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 no. At what I found out later, they only had one black RN, and they had on nights. And then everybody else was Caucasian. Okay. All the patients. At that time, there was no black patients in that hospital. Well, I didn't think too much about it, didn't think anything about it. And I said, no, I'm not working nights, I'm working days. I said, I made a contract to work days and I'm not working nights. And she told me she's never heard a Southern nurse be so adamant. I said, no, I'm not. Okay. And then within 2 or 3 days, I started to work. Enjoyed it immensely. I really enjoyed it. Then I got to know the new girls, and they said, where are you staying? And I told them where. And I said, they didn't have any more room. She said, line. They catch you, you get, friends. Say they just don't have any blacks here. That's what it is.
So even as a working nurse, once you left school, you would still stay in a dorm? They still had dorms for the nurses?
Yeah, they had dorms for the nurses.
Okay, because you hadn't actually entered another program at that point. You were just working.
No. They used to have dorms for nurses who worked.
Okay.
Wasn't it good?
Yeah, and Hirsch Hall was built. One of the major problems Grady had over the years was where to house the nurses. Nurses were housed at the hospital. Okay. Very few went to a house and lived because you worked so much.
That's true.
You needed to be right there at the beck and call. And it was not unusual for a physician to have maybe a favorite nurse, maybe that scrubbed in the operating room, and in the middle of the night want that nurse to scrub with him, and she had to be right there and get up and come over. It also happened to student nurses who maybe were, had some area they were really good in, would be called in the middle of the night to come back to the hospital. So you lived there.
Okay.
To talk about our diversion just a little bit. When I was in the operating room, I remember there was an operating supervisor named Gluck. That area was the white Caucasian nurses who was in charge of the operating rooms and all.
And was this at Grady?
I'm backtracking back when I was a student.
At Grady,
I'm backtracking with that. We really covered the operating room. The doctors end up liking certain people to do. Okay. I, with all these crazy hours, we had to, if they had one RN who was late, then we took the role. Mm-hmm. One afternoon, the RN was sick or something, the main, so they assigned me to work finish up till 8 or 9 o'clock. Nobody told me. So I got dressed to go. And then somebody said, do you know you had to be here at 9 o'clock? I said, no one told me. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it unless nobody asks me. So the little supervisor came. She had these clicky heels, cute little blonde. She was pretty. And I said, you didn't ask me to stay over past my time. She said, you're staying over. I said, no, I'm not. So she sent me to the main office to the assistant director named Miss Gluck. And I told her how unfair it was to do that to me. And she said, sometimes you have to forgive people and you have to do. I was so mad I couldn't see straight. I was so mad. But then I start working scrub nurse and all that kind of stuff. This woman on the regular operating area, she said, I'll fix her. She would assign me to the cases that I was there maybe 8 hours. And they would feed me food because I didn't have time.
Right.
Then she would put me with the worst doctors to scrub. And, on the we hand instruments. We did a lot of hand of instrument. Then this one surgeon, I worked with him so much, he wanted me. You knew the instruments and that kind of stuff. Then one day, he got a broken Kelly, and he took it and threw it. Uh, he said, I don't want this damn whatever. And all the medical students looked at me. I said, you threw it, you get the damn thing. You said.
You talked back to him.
I talked back to him. And you should have seen one of the doctors was punching me because I was on the stool. I was so mad.
A Kelly is a surgical instrument. It's a clamp.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the medical student out there looking at me, and I just sat there. And I thought he was going to report it, so he called the supervisor, get me a right kind of instrument. Didn't say another word, didn't say anything about it. But he was a chest surgeon. Every time he came, he said, I want that little sassy nurse, because I would pass the instrument directly to him. I could keep up with it. And the medical student was pardon me because they knew I knew. And I kept up with him. He said, where's that little old sassy nurse?
I'm going to call you Sassy Nurse from now on. That's your new nickname.
And when I had left that practice, back still there, she gave me a C. And I said, I went back, I complained. I said, I've done 50 C's.
The night supervisor gave you the C?
He gave me a C because I said, all the work I've done, I said, no, I despise this. All right, we'll go back here.
That's good. I love these stories.
But I always would talk back. Okay, now, I went to Evanston Hospital. I told you about that. And I was there for about 2.5 years. I really enjoyed that place. They had the best food, and the patients were excellent. I worked on an area that was a combined area. The area was like this. There was the pediatric was here, and then there was adjacent area with adult patients. And they call it Cable 2. It was one of the old section of this hospital. And the other section was maybe about 10 or 12 adult patients. They were the elite rich who got the private rooms, all separate.
Okay.
And they were throughout the hospital, but that was really reserved for some of the super rich.
Okay.
And then all the children was in the back. We had a little small nursery, children of different ages. So you would assign one or the other. So when I got there, I used to make rounds with all the doctors. The nurses didn't have time to make rounds with them, but I made rounds. When they would come, I would drop my stuff. They got to know me as that little southern nurse who tell them to wash their hands. And there were doctors that I really loved that you go around. And the children. And one thing about the children, a lot of them hadn't seen black patients. So one of the little kids, Miss Cox, you're a dirty. I said, it won't rub off, sweetheart. They will rub me to be sure I can rub off.
Oh.
But their parents were good. The patients were wonderful, and it was just a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
The head nurse was a lady from South Dakota.
Okay.
Somewhat looked like you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And she sort of took us hand in hand. Then they had a lot of private duty nurses there. I had a locker room near the hospital. You come in, you change your clothing. They had a lot of private duty nurses. Do you know there was one private duty nurse who wouldn't allow me space. I had a locker next to hers. She would take all of her clothing and put it on the stool, and I put my clothing on standing up.
Mm.
Okay, and that went on for about 3 or 4 months. Let me tell you when it stopped. She had a patient. We had these old suction, Wagenstein suction that flip over.
Yes.
You remember that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. They didn't have some of that stuff. And when they had it, nobody knew how to work it.
What? I'm sorry. Can you just what is
It
it?
would that you if you had drainage from your stomach with the tube in, it would go through a suction machine.
Okay.
But it was a thing that flip over that caused the suction.
Okay.
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 And then when I was at Grady, we knew a lot about oxygen and all the apparatuses, those kind of things, starting and doing all those kinds of things. Well, she ran into this, and nobody knew how to do it. Somebody told her to go and ask me. I helped her with the suctioning. I helped her with the calculation and all the things and how to manage the oxygen for her patient, everything. Do you know I couldn't do any wrong with that lady? That lady moved all her stuff, brought me. Because those other young girls didn't know anything about
Right.
it.
Do you think that had anything to do with Grady? Because
It did.
Grady was pretty advanced
We
in
were
some of the
advanced,
things that
uh-huh.
they did versus some other schools of nursing.
I was more advanced than all those other. You would think that being that I was the same age, I was far advanced than they were.
Okay.
Because I used to volunteer to work some night shifts so I get to know the hospital. I got to know the hospital because the medical surgery, I wanted to see what medical surgery was doing and do 2 or 3 things that area. So after I started, then I went to register at DePaul.
After 2.5 years?
Afternoons.
Okay. So you worked for 2.5 years and earned money before you went to DePaul. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was earning money and going to school.
Okay. How soon after you started working at this hospital did you register at DePaul?
About 6 months.
Okay, wasn't long. Okay.
And well, I'm curious. Did they ever reconcile the issue with the dorms? Were you ever invited?
Yes.
Were you
yes,
ever invited?
Yes.
Okay.
Less than a year. She said, "Oh, we got an empty room. You can come." I said, "Nope, nope." She said, "I knew you would say that." I said, "Nope." She would call me every so often and talk to me. She told me I was a fascinating young woman. And then I would talk back to the doctors who would challenge that you had something done that was not right. I said it was that. If you don't like it, you take it yourself.
You were sassy.
Do it yourself.
They probably realized pretty quickly that you knew more.
Yeah,
Of
they
what
did.
was going
and They
on,
were,
yeah.
Because they would ask about the bottle. So I said, "That's it. That's it. I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it anymore. I know what it is." And then they get to know you over the areas. They know you from areas because some of the people would come. "You want to work on this area for me?" No. All right, go from
That's
here.
great.
Then I was going to school at the same time.
Okay.
Was
Was it as rigorous a program as Grady?
what this program? No, it's college.
Yeah.
I started university.
Yeah, but I mean, was it? Oh, was this when you were just studying science, or was this?
No,
when
no,
you,
no, no. I'm back in Chicago now. Well, I
Yeah,
was working
okay.
as an employee.
Okay.
And then I was going to a university.
Okay.
That was my time that I paid for, and just like coming to Georgia State.
Right. No, no. But what I asked was the program in Chicago as rigorous as the program at Grady?
The academic part. Did you find it as challenging or was it a totally different experience?
No, with the college. No, it was just like a regular university. That's just like coming into Georgia State.
Okay. Okay.
It was very challenging. I found there was some basic things that I was behind in, because a lot of the students had more advanced knowledge of things than I had. Naturally, I found me a friend. Within 6 months, I was up to date. She took some of the things that she had coming up I didn't have, like doing algebra and those kinds of things. I had to pass this and pass that, but she was alongside me. And I said, "I know as much as all of you know, but some things I hadn't had."
Right.
So I caught up real fast. I got to be speed demon too, and I passed everything because I would take the subway from Evanston to Chicago. The section that I went to for DePaul University was at the end of the subway downtown Chicago. So I was within walking distance from the subway to DePaul University, that section. Because they had, just like they had this section or north section that belonged to DePaul. DePaul University had a vigorous nursing program, not with students, but with the graduates. But it was primarily for law degree.
Oh, really?
They had a lot of lawyers come from
Okay.
DePaul University. Then it was a Catholic institution. So I had nuns and priests who taught a lot of classes. It was a different environment because they went on. So some of our classes were together because of Catholic philosophy. It was mandatory that you had 15 hours of Catholic philosophy. That you got the metaphysics, the Thomas Aquinas stuff, and a lot of the key people in Catholicism, because you had to have that as your background. So the 15 hours.
Did you enjoy that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, because it was different. Because you learn some of the high people that there's one person I keep up with him, but someone gave me a medal to that, and I would go to the high mass a lot. They had good high mass. I went to that. Saint Francis of Assisi.
Right.
This Pope now got his name from the Saint Francis of Assisi.
The current pope?
The current Pope. And I really like what he did, the things. So I have, at the end of this, I'm going to read you something, a prayer that he did. And one of the girls gave me a St. Francis Assisi medal, not a medal, whatever. And somebody stole it. Oh, I had a fit, couldn't find it. They stole it because it's a treasure. But I would go to High Mass. I really like the High Mass during the holiday time and those kinds of things. But nothing else was pushed. And I wasn't Catholic. I was over universal person, Baptist, whatever. Yeah, whatever you call it, I was that. But they didn't push that area. But they did have Catholic structure. And then they had, the rest of them were lay teachers. Then they went into all the things, the course content. And then there was a section, after you got your basic stuff, there's a section with nurses. There was a nurse section that you went to in order to get the baccalaureate in that area. It was really strict. But it was a lot of students. You were not by yourself.
Right.
So you can share. Everywhere I've been, I wasn't by myself. It was just a lot of people there to do things. And
And
then,
how long was that program for you? Since you came out of a 3-year diploma school, did they recognize any of your Grady education?
No.
So you had to start fresh as a
started
freshman.
I took everything like a regular college straight through. All of the English, all the science, I went straight through.
Okay, 4 years.
Almost, yeah, because I think I went doubles one time. Because I
Okay.
finished the baccalaureate in 57.
Okay.
So it was all the content. See, I had heavy courses.
Yes.
It would you take about
And working part-time.
and working. Because I had to have monies, that kind of stuff. All right. You see anything else I want to say about?
Did your family ever come visit you in Chicago?
No.
No?
Soon, no. Because no, they didn't. I can't kind of trying to think of why. I went home frequently.
Okay.
That made a difference. No, because at that time I had an ailing father. My father had coronary problems. Then later on, my mother died with cancer of the uterus. And then the other children were going places and that kind of stuff. No, I had thought about that. All right, DePaul University. I had time while I was working and going to school to go to baseball games. I really was one of the Cubs because he was that Wrigley Field was between Evanston and Chicago. On the afternoons, I went to a lot of Cub games, and I couldn't find anybody to sort of go with me. I would go by myself. Could see you get to the rapid rail. In between Evanston was Wrigley Field, and it was beautiful. They've done a lot of things to it now. And then I would talk about. I started a church, going to a church. Now back to church in Chicago. That I became a Sunday school teacher for about 3 or 4 years at that church. Okay. Let's see anything about Evanston. I stayed in Evanston about 2.5 years. Then I applied to work at Cook County Hospital. Oh,
That's the Grady of Chicago.
it was a great Chicago. There was an opening. Someone told me there was an opening because I knew I was going to get where I needed to get. There was an opening for a lead person with a practical nurse program. About 9 months, I was a lead person in a practical nurse program.
What is the practical nurse program?
They were people who more older people who had a year's training. It's more now. They've done a lot with practical nurses. 18 months,
Okay.
that type of thing.
Okay.
You want to say anything about practical nurses
Yeah.
for her?
It's not the same as a registered nurse. You do have to be licensed, but they did more of the direct patient bedside care, not the higher skilled levels.
Okay.
So bed baths, things like that.
Right now they may do a little bit more.
Now they do a lot more back then.
Okay.
Back then they couldn't even give medicines or anything like
Okay.
that. Now they can do more. So
Okay. That practice, so I was about 9 years. Then I went in, still at Cook County now. I became a staff development instructor for the entire hospital. There were a lot of us RNs. With all these key people, they were RNs. A staff development instructor, and about 4 of us. What we did, we oriented all new hired RNs. And then we had staff development program for the whole hospital. Now we had a lot of downtime in there because we were shared. But because I had done a lot of things, I did a lot of lecturing, and you did it for 8. I could talk for 8 hours, go on and on and on and on. So certain things the other teachers would push off on me because I wasn't tired. And then we would go around all the areas. It was almost like a city. Cook County was like a city.
Really?
And I think I gave that to my varicose vein because we went to this building and this building and this building, and we taught them how the oxygen worked. We used to have oxygen on a cart that you push it. And if you didn't screw it on top, it would fly off, all kinds of things, or float down the hall, a lot of things like that. And then when I left there, I still at Cook County now. I did was an instructor in pediatric nursing. It was all like another hospital. They had hospitals within the hospital. There was 7 floors of pediatric. They had newborns, they had premature nursing, and all of the levels. But there was a lot of nurses who did it. There was a nurse RN in charge of the teachers. She was teachers well. And if you like this area, you may specialize in this area. And I did a lot of newborns. Okay. And then I started also working with older children in an area where there was a steam room before they started. You know what, they used to have a room when kids were congested that they had steam come into it. You heard about?
yeah, like they get the croup.
Yeah, the croup, steam room. And you'd be wet as a dog coming out of there. But if you were sick, it really opened you up, that kind of stuff. And then then they had children in wards all over the place. But you could switch around if you wanted to. But I stayed up mostly with the smaller children in that area. And by then, I was finishing up with my baccalaureate. Then I started my master's program at that time. So after all while I was working, there are two things I did differently. I had a friend who was the weekend relief at a Chicago TB sanitarium. And she said, I got to move. Her husband was moving. And she said, they told me I had to replace myself. And she said, you're not doing much. I said, I'm not doing much. So I went over. So every weekend, I had off time. I was a 3 to 11 charge RN in charge at Chicago TB Center. That was quite an experience because they had room with patients with really, I mean, they had the bad TB, they did the surgery, you had to wear scrub clothing, and then your shoes were covered. You had to be qualified for the state. They fingerprinted you and all those kinds of things because it was a state-run institution.
Okay.
So you have had all those qualifications there. I enjoyed it. In the afternoon, we would all get together and watch TV because at that time you did not wear other clothing, and you had to have the scrub, and you had to change your shoes. So you had a locker room, and when you left out there, you were in your regular street clothing.
In your spare time, you worked the weekends.
And I worked. Well, it was good for me too, because by that time my father had died, and I helped my mother with those other children. I helped. Maybe they think I'm their mama now because all of my sisters and brothers finished college, except the one who died. My two sisters are retired school teachers, and Baba Jean is also a librarian, and my brother was in management because he went to a college in Alabama and some part-time in Auburn University. So he was able to work through Georgia Power as a starting person and became one of the supervisors for Georgia Power. But at that time, when I finished college, I was the first one in that big family to finish college
Oh, yeah.
because they couldn't afford it. Didn't have any monies. I didn't have much, but I made the little idea, and I didn't think about it as not having much. You just didn't know. And the environment that I came from, I was 8 years old when we had our first electric lights. We had outdoor privilege with toilets outside. You don't know about those, do you?
Yeah.
Not personally, no.
Okay.
But you've seen them.
But well, and my mother,
Okay.
my mother and father both
Okay.
grew up in the
Yeah.
very rural area.
Yeah.
So.
So, and then we went to get the water. We had pumps. I learned with my father to put the rods on the pump to make the water come up from the pump. All right.
You've come a long way.
I come a long way. Okay.
Why did you decide to pursue your master's degree in science?
Well, it had annexation to nursing for teaching nursing students, but it was the same basic stuff that everybody else got, because we had to do theses and all those kinds of things. Then I had an oral exam, that kind of stuff. When I finished the master's program, we were doing oral exams, and you had a counselor to help you with your thesis. They had the people who quizzed us came with a big room. You had to have your gloves, your hat, and all this kind of stuff on to meet this group. Can you imagine?
No.
Okay. And there was maybe one or two nuns and that kind of stuff. But they all sat around the table. They had questions that related to all the contents you had with all the teachers. I missed one question. And I knew the answer to it. And when they got through, they said, would you go outside the little cubby hole? When I came in, they had a table fixed with food and told me you passed. And what question I missed. I knew I had missed that question. It was something, but I don't know what it was. But, and you're sitting there with your hat and your gloves and all that. I was one of the first ones from my master's program to do the oral exam. So I got on the phone and called all of them, told them what was what.
Well, was the school integrated? Or the DePaul?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that it was accredited.
No, integrated.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was no. That was nothing with black and white
Okay.
when I was in college.
Okay.
No, 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 no. You were just like anybody else.
Okay.
So integrated. In one of those philosophy classes, there was a little short Caucasian fellow who would rush to put my coat up. I said, "Get away from me!" He would be sure I hung up my coat. He was a lawyer. Somebody said, "He likes you." I said, "No, he doesn't. He doesn't like me." No, it wasn't. It wasn't. No, it was just like Georgia State. Now that's
Okay.
It was a regular college, university. Okay, let me see where I left off. All right. And during that time, I had extra time to do. I had a couple courses in modeling. I used to work as an usher at these shows, just like the Alliance Theater, because you went in for free, you became an usher, and I saw a lot of the major things. And then I took a course in modeling, took courses in various things in flowers. I don't know a doom about flowers now. But we'd go to the areas where they had new cars, ride around, that kind of stuff. And about then, by the time I finished my master's, by then I was married and I was coming back to Atlanta, because that was his home. So I wrote Miss Hammond. I think she was the director at that time, that I was interested in teaching students. And she told me, come on. So I got there and got involved in teaching freshman students. But one thing about when teaching freshman students, there were a lot of them.
And where were you teaching the freshman students?
Do what?
Where did you go back to teach the freshmen?
No, I went back to Grady.
You went back to Grady. Okay.
I
Because you said Atlanta, you didn't say specifically.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
Atlanta,
It was Grady. Okay.
Came back to Grady and enjoyed the students immensely. I really enjoyed students. And then by that time, I really was enjoying nursing. I like people. Because I would take time to talk to the patients. And when the students were gone, because I had to wait on my husband to pick me up and so forth and so on, I would go back into the areas and talk to the patients. The patients, we had gotten up in a wheelchair. The staff had left them there. They found out I came back and raised hand. They said, "Oh, here she comes." They would get those patients back.
They get stuck in those wheelchairs all afternoon, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they thought they were gonna have free time because I would say, "Miss So and So, when have you been to bed?" "I want to go to bed."
Now, you graduated with your master's in what, 60-something?
And I ended up with 60. I have to look at my sheet here.
Yeah, I think I wrote it down.
Okay.
So by then, the new Grady was built.
Yeah, the new Grady.
Okay.
New Grady.
Can you tell us some of the things you recognize were different there? Because it was still segregated until 64,
Then by
65. So was it still segregated when you came back to the new Grady?
Yes, it was with the students.
Okay.
But let's see, when did we start combining? It was about time you graduated, we was combining patients.
Right before I entered, they combined patients.
It was kind of combined patients.
Right.
So really, right then, it was patients and students. So I taught all students. So we didn't have the students separated. So when I went in, we were teaching all students.
Okay, that was
Okay,
a good question.
yeah.
So we still had the municipal training school for colored nurses and the Grady training school for the white nurses, and you taught in both until they combined in 64, or were they already combined?
They were
when you
already
came back?
They were already combined.
Okay, they were already combined. Okay. How about the new hospital? What did you think of it when you came back?
It was good. The way it is now, I've been back there about a couple of times. It has changed tremendously. It almost like the Wizard of Oz going into it is different. I don't know my way around now.
We don't either.
Uh-huh.
I don't either.
So then I became involved with the students and the students' activities and all those kinds of things. Teaching mostly basic nursing, but in the summer, there was no basic nursing, so we had to work in other areas. I mean, be in medical surgical. We did also someone like staff nurses on those areas, but we were not part of the staff as such. Some of us did different things. I did medical surgical nursing. I did OB, obstetrics, and I did a bit in psychiatrist. When I went in psychiatrist, the supervisor had asked for me to help do care planning because at that time we were getting into writing a plan of care for patients. So you had to write the principal, getting ready for state board and all those people to come around. So everything had to be in check. And the supervisor of psychiatrists told me that she said she heard that I was good. By the way, you want anything to drink?
I'm
Okay,
good. Thank you, though.
okay.
I'm good.
That I was good with care planning and all. She asked me, would I come to psychiatry? She said, I know you don't have a background, but you do. I understand that you can really do care plans and match the care with the patients. And I was good with that. So I went into the psychiatric for that summer, and they oriented me. But she told me I always have somebody with me. But I never took care of patients. I was just going in.
Writing the care plans. Okay.
Writing care plans and showing them how to work. And then anywhere I went, there was a orderly or whoever with me, letting me in and out, that kind of stuff. I would go to all the conference. I learned a lot about psychiatry nursing by then to match whatever I had so they could be ready for the board to come check with that. But the ones who were in basic nursing did various things during the interim from one to the other. Okay, anything else about the school you want to ask me before I jump?
Did you have any memorable period with the students
I had a lot of it.
that you remember? Like, do you remember when Dr. Martin Luther King was killed and we had to be locked up in the dorms?
Yes.
Yeah. How was that decision made? Because I remember sitting on the windowsill watching the parade, the funeral procession go by and thinking that the black students would want to be there and they were not allowed to go.
No, I don't.
You don't remember that decision?
I don't
It was
remember
probably
that.
Mrs. Dixon's decision.
Yes, I don't remember much about it, but they thought there'd be a problem, but that was no
We
problem.
had no problem, did we?
No problem in Atlanta.
Yeah. Everybody wasn't rioting or anything, and
No.
it was like they were so afraid, and I can understand. She was afraid the student nurses under her care would be harmed or whatever, and so we
That
got
was-
locked up. But
that
we
was
had
not
one
a
problem.
No problem in the city with anybody else.
Nothing. Yeah, and it was such a historic event.
It was a historical event. No,
Yeah.
there was no problem with it.
Yeah. I was in Piedmont, of course, and Piedmont we could see Ebenezer from the
Yeah,
window.
From you could see
So
that.
I mean, I
yeah.
saw all the dignitaries
And you
and all
didn't
the celebrities
and
walk
you
by.
and you didn't see any fuss.
Nothing.
No outbursts of
Nothing.
anger or nothing like that.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody was respectful that day.
It was very much, and
Yeah.
the mayor of the city was there and everything.
Right.
Who was the mayor then? Was that Marcel? Was he?
I don't remember. Who was the mayor when Martin Luther King was there? I'd have
I
to
thought
look
about it.
back.
It was a fleeting thing.
Wasn't Ivan Allen, was
Yes,
it?
it was Ivan.
Because he was
Allen.
there a long time.
It was
Okay.
Ivan Allen.
And he
It-
really worked hard
He
to make
worked.
sure everybody
uh-huh,
got
It was
along.
Ivan Allen.
I
Okay.
think it was Ivan Allen.
Okay.
See, because I was not, because every once in a while, my sister-in-law, who is also a school teacher, when she is pumping me for information, she didn't understand. Her upbringing was different from mine, and she didn't understand why I didn't know a lot about the civil rights, because I didn't have any courses in civil rights. All this stuff happened in Birmingham. I knew about it, and all the sit-ins, I knew about it, but I was never a participant of it because I was not in an environment to be a participant. And I didn't know about it. So uh, she tells me, and sometime on TV, as I've gotten older, I've learned more things about the civil rights and all that being older from the TV and those kinds of things. So there were a group of people who didn't know about it or knew about it, but was not actively involved. And there was later on there was a lot of sit-ins in Atlanta for the stores down there, but I wasn't into that. So see, you sort of separated the area. Okay. Anything else about the School of Nursing?
I can't think of anything right now, but
Okay.
it might come to me.
And if we do think of things, we could always plan another trip to come down and talk to you to fill in anything we missed today.
Okay, let's see what I can. Kind of pretty. All right. When I returned back working at Grady, I used to do a lot of walking to teach, collect money for the American Heart, the diabetes, and all those kinds of things. But I had dogs with me. I raised about 3 dogs, so I had that too. Oh, one thing can I backtrack just a moment?
Sure.
When I was in Chicago, I was an advisor to the student nurses of Illinois, and that we would have a council. That's me right there. And we would meet with the various students and the groups and to sort of talk about the things they would do. Isn't that interesting?
Their uniforms are very similar to ours,
I know
aren't they?
Yeah. So
Look at that room. And the white gloves.
yeah.
We dressed so much better in the old days, Tracy. We just did.
It's interesting.
Uh-huh.
I was finding through my stuff and I brought that far.
That is a great photo.
Oh, your hat is so pretty.
I had my hat on.
Oh,
You always
yes,
had the hat.
So pretty.
Even when we came as student nurses to Grady, they gave us a list of what to bring, and we had to have gloves and a hat
Yeah. Gloves.
to go out on Sunday. We had
Okay.
to dress properly.
So I'm looking around this picture, and I don't, or I maybe only see one other African American in the.
They had students, they had black students.
Okay.
But nationally, there are very few black nurses. You see a lot because of Grady. But universally, the number of blacks RNs very low. Did you know that?
Even to this day, really?
In this day and time, nationally.
Okay.
And nationally, they have low RNs, black RNs. Most of them are.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it could be at the time they were coming up, there was no place for them.
Right.
Like schools.
Right.
When Grady closed, they had my hair and all those sort of spotted, Howard University. But you know that if you go to big organizations, you don't see many black nurses, do you?
Yeah.
Have you thought about it?
I know I've been a patient a lot in the last couple of years, and I always had black and white nurses.
I know.
Yeah.
But see, this later on, but if you go
Right.
universally, you don't see as many.
And,
Uh-huh.
one of the things, and this does remind me of a question, in the School of Nursing, we had the black school and we had the white school, and then we combined. And by the time I went, we only had 6 black girls in my class.
This is what I'm saying.
So we wondered, was that something that
Let
was
me tell you-
chosen by the black
No,
students?
no.
They didn't want to come, or did the schools
No.
keep them from coming?
No. What happened is that
happened?
when they finished the high school, some of these little high schools, they couldn't pass the test.
Miss Dixon did tell us that. You had to take tests to have the qualifications,
To come in.
and they didn't have the good high schools that
That's
gave
true.
them. It
So-
wasn't that they weren't bright. They just didn't
They
have
were
the
not test
background.
savvy.
So it was very difficult for them.
Very difficult.
And they weren't getting the same education that white students were
Right.
getting.
It
That's
took
true.
years before them to have the same
catch up to date.
education
Okay.
to catch up.
And there's still some problems in these little small towns.
Yes.
Because they can't pass the test, but they were not dumb. They just
Right.
could not test savvy.
Right.
Okay.
You're right.
Uh-huh.
Because we graduated, I think, 6 black girls in my class, and we had a total of 71.
See?
Yeah.
That's because they were
Now-
not able to get in.
And then, but it's interesting, the very last class that graduated in 1982, when the school closed, I think there were, I just got a picture of it yesterday, the graduating class, and I think there were 7 black students and maybe 4 white.
Uh-huh.
So it was a very small class, but there were more black girls than there were white girls.
See,
But
because
it
they
was
was
a very
phasing, they phasing out
was
the program,
phasing
so the
out.
white students chose to go other places. 'Cause
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
They had more opportunities.
Opportunities.
So then it kind of switched.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And do you know if Georgia State's nursing program had been established by 82?
Oh, yes.
It had?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
many graduates from Grady went to Georgia State when
Okay.
they left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting? You learn some things there. haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Let me-
so, but earlier on, there was a more even number of black and white students, and it was just after the school integrated that the numbers dropped for the African American
It
students.
did drop because they could go other places.
Okay.
Because they were being integrated in the other areas. Okay. All right. And then when the school closed, I went over to be a director of medical nursing. And although
Went where to be a director of medical?
At Grady?
at Grady,
Okay, you went to the
I
hospital.
went to the hospital.
Okay.
Bernice was so upset. She was so upset. She left when I told her. Betty Blake was the director, and I told her. Betty had called me, asked me did I want a position, and when Bernice thought I was going to stay until they completely closed the school out,
Right.
because I was doing a lot of work. I did a lot of work for Bernice and
Right.
getting things together, and being in charge of the other folks that she didn't have to do.
Right.
She was so upset. She had brought some brownies, and she left that day early. She said, "You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to leave then. You just don't." Because then she lost her help, her person who supported her and helped do the other teachers and all those kind of stuff. She was upset. So I went over and.
But you know what she told me? Because when we were at her house a couple weeks ago, I said, I said, I'm going to go visit Miss Boykin, whatever. And she says, she was a true friend. She supported me through thick and thin.
I
She
really
was
did.
a true friend, and she recognizes it.
Yes. And I did. Because a lot of times with the teachers in basic nursing that I was in charge of, talking about Imogene. Imogene had been in the Army, and she would get mad with the students, and if they didn't remember what she had, she wanted to slap them. And then one day when we were in the areas, Imogene was teaching students, and they had forgotten the formula, and she was getting ready to bristle up. And one of the kids ran upstairs to me, Miss Boykin, get down there quick, because Miss Davis was going to hit a student. I flew from the 7th floor down, all missteps getting down there. I said, Imogene, I said, Imogene, don't touch, don't. I caught her hand, because I think she was going to slap a student. No. I said, you go and sit down. Then I took over giving medicine for that area, because
Right.
she was strict. You had to have this done and this done, because she had been in the Army. I said, you can't do this.
Right, right. We were not in the Army, were we?
No, we're not in the Army. And then Imogene's mother became ill, and she stayed with her mother, sat up in a chair, and then she would fight with Bernice. Bernice got mad with Imogene and told me, I want her fired. You fire her. I said, no, I'm not going to fire Imogene. No, I'm not going to fire Imogene. No.
So you had to be the go-between
I was-
between the two of them, didn't you?
Uh-huh. No, I told her, no. And then when her husband, it came back to her. See, we had to do things for her, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it kind of changes, doesn't it?
It changes when you have to see whatever.
Uh-huh.
Okay, being in the director of medical nursing after I left the students. And then I had a lot of areas, like the medical surgical areas, the coronary unit, the renal ICU, the medical ICU, the patients, everybody combined, nurses, everybody. There was no difference here. Radiology and oncology, but I had a lot of help because I didn't know all this stuff. The head nurses answered to me. I had supervisors, I had clinical specialists, and staff development people, that kind of stuff. And then, I guess that must have been 9 or 10 years. And then the hospital changed with the downsizing. That happened then. So we had to either leave or retire.
Do you remember about what year that was?
Was it the early? I think it might have been the early 90s.
Early 90s.
It
It
was
was
the
in the
early
90s. In the 90s.
Because Bernice left in about 92, I think.
Yeah, it was in the
about the
90s.
same time you left?
I left before, about a couple of years
Okay.
before. It was in the 90s. They made rearrangement. They did it. Somebody told me the monies were short. So the ones, now this was not publicized, and the ones who might made a little bit more money, they erased us out. We started doing like the big cities, like they get rid of people. That's how we did. I chose not to retire because I could have, but some of the students I had taught was in public health, and they said, "Come on and work with us." So I went to public health.
Was that still as an employee with Grady?
No,
Okay, so
Separate.
you left Grady entirely for the first time for years and years.
yes, right.
Okay.
And then went to all of the supervisory and the students were at Grady, under Grady. But this is a different public health department.
Like DeKalb County Public Health or
Yes.
Fulton County?
I went to Fulton County.
Fulton, okay.
And when I was hired in Fulton County, I did home visit in the immunization program and anything problems related to public health.
Okay.
And I did that for just a few months. And then I took, see, like public health now, Fulton County. I took a course in examining children. From then on, I didn't do the house. I examined children, get them ready for school, and they had routines. They had to see 3 months so on. I did that. For the time I was there. And then while I was examining children, Fulton County the Health Department allowed us one day, not allowed, we were barred out to the city of Atlanta and around one day a week. I was in an elementary school one day a week to examine children. And while I was there, I helped look at the immunization schedule and with the assistant principal, and I would relieve the teachers if they had to go somewhere. I didn't. That was not part of my assignment.
Yeah.
But I was into everybody's business, and when they were not busy, I would be at the desk greeting people, and I think a lot of other teachers, public health nurses, didn't do what I did because the assistant principal knew I knew a lot of things about it, so I would help her be sure that all of the students in the school up-to-date immunization. I would help her go over all the immunization sheets, and then I would be in the waiting room, introducing to patients, and the day they had orientation. Now, I don't know why they picked me. I did that. I would be sure that all the immunizations for the kids coming into the school
Right.
were that right. And then on payday, when the teachers got paid, I would relieve some of their areas. I would sit in with their students while they were going to get their checks cut.
You just did everything. You were a Jack and Jill of all trades.
Jack and Jill. But they had an LPN to take care of the sick. I didn't have to take care of them.
Okay.
However, they would still come to me because they knew I was an
Uh-huh.
RN in public health. And one morning I remember I was coming to work, after I parked and all. I used to drive a little red truck. I had a truck, a Dodge truck. And as I was coming in the door, here, John Lewis.
Okay.
You know who John
Yes,
Lewis
I know
is?
who John Lewis is,
Yeah.
right?
He was coming into the school, and I was waiting until he passed, and he's the principal of the school. That's my nurse. I said, myself, I'm not her nurse. I belong to public health. But I really felt a part. Everywhere I would go, I would feel a part of that area.
That's nice.
Okay. So I did public health about, I guess I stopped early into 2000.
2000, so a number of years.
Not too many, more about 5, I
5
guess.
years,
About
okay.
5 years. Because my husband was getting sick. Then I stopped working full time. By the way, while I was doing, we learned WIC, how to do WIC and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, right.
For
food stamps,
foods and that kind of
right.
stuff. And then I started working part time, doing part time, and then part time ended up being I worked 1 day a week for pay, and 2 days for volunteer.
Isn't that always the case?
Because see, I had to work for pay for my license and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, and then I volunteered the two. And when I would volunteer, I had the same workload.
Uh-huh.
And at examining the children, my schedule was full. They would give me the other people, public health nurse would give me full. Then we got a lot of the Hispanics in. Started getting a lot of Hispanic patients.
Mm-hmm.
We had an interpreter with us. This is when I started learning. I did know some Spanish one time. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Uh-huh.
And I really felt for some of those.
Children.
You talking about a hard time. They're
Yeah.
hard. But they're despised as far as immigration is concerned. But I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of contact with them. And I don't know whether they assigned me. Some of the patients I saw while the children were little and that kind of stuff all through the whole family. This one family I remember so well. I always saw her children. Then one day she had a little boy in, and she was sitting there just crying. And I didn't know what was wrong with her, so I was waiting on an interpreter because she would go from one person to the next. And she said that someone had robbed them. You know, they kept money without the bank,
Uh-huh.
and they have a lot of monies. They don't take it anywhere, and someone stole everything they had.
Wow.
And you know, we made some people learn to speak English and that kind of stuff. And then I took time just to hug her. And because at that time I was an older person, so when the parents would come in, sometimes the grandmama was young, and I had the whole family. And then we had students from these schools of nursing. Georgia State would send their students to the public health area, and then they would follow us. I saw a lot of Georgia State students.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to follow me
Mm-hmm.
because I was old and I didn't threaten them. And I would let them help me plan for the patient, that kind of stuff. And I think because they would knock themselves out, I won't go with you today. I said, all of you, and their teacher would say, all of you can't go with her, can't sit in with her.
You were the popular one. Well, you were the popular one when I was a student. We all wanted you. We didn't want Imogene Davis. We wanted you.
So they would, you know, I'll help them. We planned for the patients and that kind of stuff with them. But we had a whole schedule of patients from 8 to 5.
Uh-huh.
And then it was getting dark. And the supervisor said, don't have Miss Boykin pass at nighttime. She can't see at night.
They had to get you in that red truck and home, didn't
I had
they?
to get home in that red truck. Okay. Then I stopped a little before my husband died, not working.
Okay.
He had cardiovascular failure and up and died on me. Just as I said, my mother up and died on me. Okay. In the meanwhile, I showed him my husband, after he had already retired from the school system, we started an in-home record distribution, gospel. And I didn't like gospel, but I was with it. We sold DVDs and CDs to small record stores. The major record stores like Provident and all those big stores didn't sell to those. Had to be a middle person.
Okay.
Okay. The big stores sold to us. We had to have a credit line because we didn't have to pay to get the records. But then we sold to the people with the little stores.
Okay.
Okay.
What was the name of the company?
Stacco, once it out. STATCO.
Statco. Okay.
STATCO.
Uh-huh.
Statco.
Stacco.
How'd you come up with that name?
Somebody, he got it from somewhere. before my husband got that company, he used to tape record because he was in music. He used to tape record sermons and all that stuff. Then we started getting our own supplies and this kind of stuff. Then he left that because people didn't pay us. We were not good business people, and they didn't pay us. And my husband believed that the Christian part of them, and we had folks who owe us money. I remember the one time we went to a dinner party. By the way, my husband, all the student nurses programs we went to, my husband was always with me.
He came with you.
He, wherever, and I went with his place. But back again, we were at a party, and then he went to pick up his old Chevy. And while I was waiting, I saw this preacher who owed my husband a lot of money. And then about the preacher was getting in his car and so forth and so on. That's why you thought my husband was a preacher, because we dealt with a lot of religious people. But they're worse than the ones who are not religious. So when my husband was coming back from our car, he said, catch him. He was driving a fancy car. He has my money.
Did he ever pay you?
No.
That's too bad. Well, let's go back, because I know you said when you left Chicago you had already gotten married.
I was getting married. I was married by that time.
So I think a real important story to tell is how you met your husband.
Do what?
How you met your husband.
I met him
Uh-huh.
in the group sessions. Meeting him because of going to music things. I met him through some music.
Oh, it was like social events.
Social events.
Okay.
Social events.
And I think it's interesting that he was from the South
Yes.
and working. And did he go to school in Chicago too?
He went to, these teachers had to be extra folks. Like he went to the Northwestern University to update. You know, the teachers, I don't know what they have to do it now. But I saw something in the paper that they stop giving money to teachers to go back and get further education. But ever so often they had to go back and be updated.
Okay.
And my husband did Indiana University and Northwestern University.
Okay. So was he already teaching in Georgia and went up there for a course, and that was when you met him?
I met him a long time ago and didn't realize I met him, but then I got to know him more, going back and forth to courses.
Okay. And then he wanted to come back to Atlanta to
'Cause that's
teach
where he was
in the
working.
schools.
See,
Okay.
there he was working.
only there temporary in
Temporarily
Chicago.
to get updated.
I understand now. Okay.
What was he teaching at a high school?
Was he teaching high school and elementary?
Okay. Which schools do you remember?
Yes, he was in he was in the various counties.
Okay.
DeKalb County, wasn't in the Atlanta system, and then there's what's the name? Beaufort.
Beaufort, Georgia, right? They have an independent school system.
Independent school system, all the school system that he was in. When he worked in Beaufort, they had to, the teachers had to start the fire in the heater.
In the furnace.
Yeah.
Oh. Buford was a little old timey. I worked as an occupational health nurse in Buford at the Lovable Company.
Yeah.
They had a company there that made ladies' undergarments. And they made them for Sears, Pennies, you name it. Nobody knew this, but they made them right up there in Buford. And it was a nice little town, but it was a little backwards.
Yeah.
It was a little backwards.
Yeah, so you can see the teaching and making the start in the fire in the furnace. Okay. And then when I started with the little company, I had what I guess you call her whatever, aide or whatever, who did put things in the computer, all the records in the computer that I was selling. And what I did mostly was I ordered records and received the records from the vendors. I paid all the expenses, but I had a CPA who did all the time. I had 2 people with the computer. I had a guy who was sure that everything was in the computer. If I was audited, that would be exact. He could show that. Then we had someone to repair the computer. I had a big computer downstairs. We had a workstation downstairs, because this is an old house that my husband wanted to move out, but one guy told him that if he did, the cooks would be in there cooking, he would be. So I got a place downstairs where we did the records, and there's a big computer down there
Okay.
and that kind of stuff. And then I had, I said CPA, and then UPS came to pick up things from here in the port. Okay.
So your business was run out of your home.
It was. At first, we made money. Tyler Perry, when he first started doing records, he sold a lot of records. We bought a lot of records, but that stopped because he started putting them in the main stores, and the price was down.
Okay.
You didn't make much money because if you bought the real records, you couldn't charge these people in the middle very much. So the upbeat was small, whatever. And I had about 60 to 70 clients, but not all of them bought. And after my husband died, you could see the difference because they said I didn't know anything about records and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of stuff. And then people didn't pay me. I got a collecting agency, and they got some of my money, but right now I have thousands of dollars owed to me. One reason I didn't sue because that meant that I have to almost finance the lawyer,
Yeah.
and then you may not get the money.
I know it.
And then just before, about two and a half to 3 years ago, I stopped the company
Okay.
because it was a 24/7 job, trying to collect your money and trying to sell. It was just too much for me. And then when I started getting the infection, I was so tired. I didn't know, because I didn't know this was happening to me. And I think it came from eczema. I was bitten by a mosquito down under my face, and what happened to. And then my skin, you could see different colors, the sunburn too. But I had a rash all over, and my legs and everything. And my primary doctor told me I had eczema. And so I went to a dermatologist. It took her a month to decide I had eczema. And during that time, I had, by the way, in '07 and '09, I had two knee replacements.
replacements.
Okay. Then evidently, that infection started in the knee.
Oh.
So when they got pulse out it, they found bacteria, and that made me have that universal thing. It was painful.
I
And I told you, and then I fell and couldn't get up because of that. By the way, I had one of these things around your neck,
Okay.
Uh-huh.
A medic alert.
a medical alert thing, and that's a good thing for folks to have. It circles this whole building, and when I'm here by myself and whatever, I don't need it, but they call me and ask me, do I have it? And it's a good thing. I'm with that area that you have to activate it once a month. It comes another color, and then you have to call and see whether it's working. I really
Okay.
like it.
That's good to have.
It's good to have.
I wish Mrs. Dixon had something like that. She doesn't.
I want to tell. I'll ask about it.
Yes.
It's marvelous, and then it's my little gizmo in there. It's red alert, and I don't worry about it. If someone comes and when you all leave, if I'm going downstairs because washing machine and all that down there, I wear it.
Good.
She really needs it.
She does.
and that's something that everybody need to have.
If you're living alone, you need it.
You need it because when I think I might have been the first elderly person who got it, and at this little meeting, they told other folks. A lot of folks started getting it.
Once you did it.
Once you get it,
Okay.
and to make a difference,
And you feel safer with it.
I feel safe.
Yeah.
And I got 3 base phones, and everywhere I go, I take my phone with me.
Yeah.
Then I have a
That's good. That's good.
cell phone. I don't even know my cell phone number. Okay. And that when I disband the area, do you know it's hard trying to stop a business, because we had a machine that took care of credit cards. You had to rent it, you couldn't buy it. And when I stopped doing it, I sent it back through UPS. And do you know they told me they had sold that company to another company, and they told me how much money I had to pay. And I said, no, I stopped and sent it back. They said, we don't have it. And I talked to a young lady, and she wouldn't let me talk, and I said, never mind. And then somebody else called me. I said, I sent it back. I have a tracking number. Didn't get
Good.
any more from them.
Good.
Tracking them. And then all the stores will still call me, and the people who are still call me. That's why I don't always answer telephone.
Right. You kind of have to screen your calls,
I
don't
screen my
you?
call because even though I wrote them, and the records that we had that's in circulation all over on the internet and everything else, but see, we didn't want to do the internet. We was doing telephone, that kind of stuff. They're old gospel songs, and they're still in that list, so they won't die out. And so that means that stuff that we sold still in that package that you got, or whatever.
Well, you kind of do what Tracy does. You're preserving something.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Well,
It's that-
we do have a music archivist too.
Do you?
I'll see if he's interested in getting some of those for the archives. Because we have lots of records. I mean, thousands and thousands.
Okay.
Thousands of
See,
records.
this was gospel. You know, I didn't even like gospel. I'm a sort of small rock. I'm ashamed to say it.
So who's your favorite singer or band? Who do you like the best?
Well, I like the old folks.
The old ones, yeah. Yeah. See, I listen to Frank Sinatra, and he's even before my time.
I have to always look back who they were. All right, and then I stopped it because I was in rehabilitation at the Buckhead Rehabilitation Center because I thought they had to do another knee replacement, but Dr. Aaron, who I got from that area, the reason I ended up going down to that downtown area, when I got ready to go to the doctor, my sister gonna take me because, you know, I was down, they found me on the floor.
Right.
And there was a traffic jam. And they couldn't let people go into the Piedmont area, so they took me to Midtown.
Okay.
And that's how I got down. I love that place down there.
Well, good.
I really like that place down there. And they took me in, and people say the nurses get special attention. They may be right, but they didn't know that I was a nurse
That's
when they
right.
brought me in.
Yeah.
And then they assigned me to an orthopedic surgeon. That's that Dr. Aaron. And then that place over there, it's just immaculate. Have you ever been over there?
No. Is that run by Emory?
The one
Midtown
it's part of Emory.
Okay, because it used to be Crawford Long, didn't it?
No, Crawford Long is still there. This
is it
this
still
is
there?
This is the back and the knee area.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not familiar with
With
it.
that one.
Okay.
It was marvelous. It's marvelous. So when they got me, see, they had to go ahead and do surgery on
Right.
me. Instead of him, he found that he could make a band around that area.
Okay.
So when they finished the surgery, I had to go to a rehabilitation center because I couldn't use that leg at all. I was at the Buckhead, the rehabilitation area. It's an old folks home too, but they had rehabilitation for 3 months.
Wow.
And then I was in rehabilitation in the house. I had a home health nurse, I had a physical therapist, and the occupational therapist who came to me.
Okay.
One I saw every week for 3 months. And and they will, walk with me and do my exercises and all those kinds of things. Isn't that interesting?
Did they know you were a nurse by then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they knew.
So then you got your special care.
I think I got special treatment, but there's two things that I learned is rehabilitation. How valuable it is to have insurance. There are a lot of people who didn't get rehabilitation long,
Right.
or who might not have gotten it before they got there because they didn't have insurance.
Now, you were an employee of the School of Nursing, but the School of Nursing really was under the auspices of the hospital.
That's right.
So you really got retirement from the hospital and insurance from the hospital
No,
when you retired?
I didn't get retirement when they severed our being. They wanted, I got retirement from the hospital.
Okay.
But when they severed us, they wanted to give us a bulk amount and not give us retirement.
Not a monthly
Month-
retirement
okay.
check. Okay.
And let me tell you how we got that. Some people didn't get it, they took monies.
Right.
we had a lot. I got the group together. You know, Annie Shaw.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I
Annis-
worked on 4A when
Yeah,
I.
Annis was one of those groups who had
Okay.
was in this group that they severed,
Okay.
and I got her with about 4 or 5 of us got lawyers,
Good.
and some of them didn't want to go. I said, "You're gonna get here, okay?" And so we got a lawyer. Oh, they were the offspring of Garland's, that group of lawyers.
Okay.
You know, Garland.
Right.
But he had some sub areas. I saw one of the guys named in that area who took us on as clients.
Okay.
And we paid as we went.
Right.
So
He
we
worked
didn't have,
with you. Right.
Okay. And we would not, people thought we were suing the hospital. You know what we were suing for? To get our pension.
Exactly. Because you had some kind of employment agreement for years and years
Yes,
that
years.
included a retirement.
Uh-huh.
And now they changed the rules afterwards and wanted just to give you a lump sum.
That was from all that severing. Some people
Right.
just took it.
Right.
But we said no.
Right.
No. So we were able, by law,
Right.
we won our case. And there were just a select group of nurses who did that. The rest of them took their money and
Right.
went
How many do you think were in your group?
in my group that started, about 6 of us started with our group.
Anna Shaw and you.
And, there was a medical Mildred Cherry.
Yes, I remember
you know,
Miss
Mildred
Cherry. Right.
And, Barbara Riley.
And yeah, and these are all nurses who had been to Grady
For years.
For years. 20, 30 years
Yeah, that's you
easily.
talking,
We're not talking 10 years. We're talking their whole
No.
careers almost.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you deserve a pension if you've worked
Yeah.
for somebody that
And
long.
and I thought that was just awful.
Right.
That they didn't want to give us.
How about health care? Did they give you
Yeah,
insurance?
they offered that. What is that group of thing with it? But I didn't have to. My husband had insurance from the school system.
Okay, so
I
you were okay
I
under
was
him.
okay, but some of the others went to other plans. That was very expensive.
Right.
What you call it? Aetna. There was a plan.
Okay,
Yeah,
Aetna had a
they got
plan.
it through that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
I know.
I thought that was ugly.
Yeah.
But I made them stick with it.
Good.
And then we met with Betty Blake and the lawyers from time to time. You know, I don't think they liked the idea that we had lawyers, but we met and they wanted to explain why they did what they did. We just listened to them.
Right.
But we followed through and got our stuff.
Good for
Okay.
you. Good for you.
There was a small annuity they gave. You know, nurses didn't get very much money at that
Exactly.
time. Almost. And they're older nurses. If you asked them how much retirement, it would be crumbs.
Mm-hmm.
It just, they were poor. They were poor. And they were poor people because there was no money
Yeah.
in them.
Nursing was not a lucrative money field to go into.
I know it. I know it. Mm-hmm.
Even here you had a BSN, an MSN,
Yeah.
all this experience. And like Miss Dixon told me when she retired, she said, you know, the most I ever got paid was like $60,000 a year. And she worked till 92, and the responsibility that they had was tremendous.
And now a beginning nurse could to offer 40 and 50,000 to start.
Yeah, with no experience whatsoever.
whatever.
So it's we're thrilled
Yeah.
that it has changed.
Yeah.
We really
and,
are.
And two, getting male students. I think
Yes.
Grady might have been the first of schools that had male students.
I think it was in the state.
One of my very good friends, there was a program he went through. I think it was in Athens, but he's a Grady nurse and he's an ICU nurse, and he works 2 days a week, and he probably makes twice as much.
Do you know his name?
His name was Brad Miller.
Okay, because we have a list. We have 23 men graduated from Grady in its entire history.
He didn't go to Grady. He went to a program in.
Oh, but
in-
he worked at Grady. You said he was a Grady nurse. I thought
Oh
you
no,
meant
I'm
he
sorry. He's
graduated.
at Emory. He's
Oh,
an
okay.
Emory nurse.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Grady had very few male students.
Only
Yeah.
23 in
Yeah.
the entire time.
Yeah.
But they tried to get him.
He loves being a nurse, and he's so good at it.
Right.
And I was kind of surprised he went into that field,
Yeah,
but he's
that's
wonderful.
I think that's what helped us to get our salaries up more than anything, don't you?
I think so too.
When the men came
That's
in.
true. And nurses, I think nurses were more maternalistic.
Mm-hmm.
that you helped everybody but yourself.
Well, and maybe there was this prevailing idea too that if you were a nurse, you were going to marry a man who would really be taking care of you, so you wouldn't have to make the money yourself. And of course, that's changed over time.
It changed over the years. Okay.
Yeah, or that attitude has
Yes.
changed.
Well, it was you were either going to be a secretary, a nurse, or a school teacher.
That's what it was.
Those were your choices if you had a career. You know, and that took a long time for that to change.
And there are two things I always maintain.
Okay.
The American Nurse Association, I was always a member of that.
Okay.
And the National League for Nursing.
Okay.
Now, but I wasn't active in those areas. I was not.
Right.
If you look at...
You just remained a member for years?
I'm going to tell you something,
Okay.
too. If you get to the National League of Nursing for Georgia, you'll find my name as one of the nurses who's been a member for years. And I might have been top it, but I wasn't active with them.
Okay.
And I still pay my dues. Only one thing, I don't get my registration anymore. I'm not
Right.
going to
I
be
don't
working.
either.
But I have a membership in the American Nurse Association and the National League for Nursing.
And you kept those,
I kept those.
but not your
Licenses.
RN license,
RN
right?
license.
Okay, kept those.
And if you see me on there, I haven't done a doodly squat for as being a member, but I just pay it. I just feel that, and then it keeps you up to date with what's going on.
Right.
Because they send you free literature.
Okay, good. I did not keep either of those up either.
Uh-huh.
I was a member of the the American Association of Occupational Health Nurses
Oh,
because
yeah.
that was my specialty
Yes.
for years. But once I retired, I stopped it all.
Yeah, but I still keep
but you
those
kept
because
those up.
I keep those because
Okay.
I like what they do.
Okay, good.
Okay. I think I've told you everything. I told you, as just as a person, I did collecting money for these American, all those kinds of things. I stopped answering the telephone when I was sick. They were still calling me. And I said, I can't, I have to take care of myself. I'm not able to
That's
do
right.
that. And then I worked on campaigns. I used to give voter stuff.
Okay.
If I had my life to live again, I'd be a politician.
Oh, well, I'm going to write that down.
Because I used to campaign for, and especially that
You were very persuasive.
I campaign when I was at public health, all that neighborhood over there, it was safe to go into. You can't go in these places now. You don't know, somebody may shoot you.
Yeah.
But you go in and talk to them and so forth and so on. And I got to know a lot of them because when I was in public health, when we had a baby's death, you would go to the family and sit with them and counsel them.
Oh.
I got to know a lot of those people at that time. And sometimes the family will come back and bring you food and vegetables and that kind of stuff.
They appreciated it.
And then when you would have to follow the teenage mothers, and they were not doing what they should do, the parents would come and get you. Because I remember one parent came to get me to see his daughter. And he was riding on my truck. He said, I want her to get back here with children. And with my little truck, during the summertime when I was in public health, examining children, it was hot. And some of these mothers without husbands, a lot of folks without husbands, would bring their children in the hot sun on the bus. And I would take them back home. Well, I didn't have all this stuff in the car for them. I'd have them hide the kids down and I would drive them home.
You didn't have the car seats and stuff, did you?
I didn't have those.
I know what you're talking about. I'm a grandma.
Because they would bring their children. Oh, I think I've covered most. And I told you I raised 3 dogs.
Yes.
What were your dogs' names?
What my dog's name?
Yeah.
I had a mixed German Shepherd named Max. And I wasn't ready for a dog. I was in the post office once, and I was looking at the bulletin board. One day I'm going to get a dog. And this man was standing behind me. He was some kind of staff development in the area. He said, you want a dog? I said, later on. The next day he brought me a little old puppy. I said, I didn't want it, but I took it back to the dormitory. The students took care of that dog until my husband came to pick me up. It was one of the best dogs. And then I wanted to get a girl dog to have him company. One of the students' father ran a farm with short hair pointers, a short hair pointer.
Right.
So I got a registered short hair pointer from one of the students.
You got a pony.
Pointer.
A pointer. I thought you said pony.
No.
Okay. I was going, where are you going to keep a pony?
So I got, we call her Muffage. She had a special name because she was full bred.
Okay.
Okay. And then Max was getting older. And going to the vet, I went, it's expensive raising dogs because, we fed them the right food and they went to the doctor and so forth. So when Max was getting sick, I said, I'm going to get another dog. Well, my vet called me and told me there was a dog up there that someone had given her to sell. She said, but you can have the dog because you bought so much from her. And that was a Weimaraner.
Oh.
Light gray dog was pretty blue-eyed. And what had happened, but she might have been about 7 months. What had happened, they were raised in North Dakota or somewhere. Somebody, and they were show dogs. They specialized in having show dogs. So somebody in Georgia got a male and a female from them. And Sarah could do everything you wanted her to do, but she decided not to do it. So when they got Sarah, her name was something, Lady Maria Milligan, whatever. They got rid of her. They gave her to a vet.
Okay.
So the vet I was going to, she said, "You want another dog?" And I got Sarah. Sarah could, if she didn't want to do anything, it was all right with me, whatever. So that's how I ended up. But Sarah ended up having diabetes, cataracts. And then every time I would take her to the eye doctor, it was $75 a pop. Okay, and I would have taken her to University of Georgia and gotten her cataracts number with her diabetes, that kind of stuff. I gave her insulin, and my dogs were indoor-outdoor dogs. That's a part of my basement that we house trained and all. I did most of. My husband just admired them. But I did all the work because Sarah had a hysterectomy.
Sarah's just like taking care of a person,
I know.
isn't she?
And Muffet had a cavity. We got a pear tree out there. She loved those pears, keep the squirrels away. Then one day she kept spinning round and round and round. Had a big cavity, so they extracted a tooth. They were my children.
They were your children. Well, you also had many student nurses who felt that you were very maternal to us, and I hope you considered us part of your children too, because we considered you our mother away from home.
But you see, that because I was accustomed to, taking care of folks and everybody else. And then with the reason it's hard to remember people. When I say folks say so many, I say, I am Geneva Cox Boykin, who are you? I have to ask that because I've had tons of students in Chicago. Hundreds.
Yes.
And then we had a lot of students at Grady. And then being these other places with public health, and you just had an overwhelming amount. And see, just one of you, but
they all just run together, don't they?
They all run together. You don't know
I understand.
who they are.
If we had our annual and we could show her a picture when we were students, she might recognize us better than 44 years later.
Yeah, I know.
But you look great. You look great.
Yeah, you do.
I'm doing well.
You're doing great.
To be old, I'll be 84 in October.
That's incredible.
That's great.
Just incredible.
And what I've done through the years, going to that little course in modeling, they teach you things. They teach you about the makeup, and I follow through with makeup. And a lot of times when I would go downtown, I used to go to J.P. Allen's a lot.
Right.
And Thompson Bowling Lee. And the reason I go to Thompson Bowling because I have small heels to get the right kind of shoe. But when I would go to J.P. Allen, I got to know this lady because I would come in and buy stuff for my sisters and brothers and so forth. And I had very poor skin, to work. She said, honey, why don't you get stuff like... Then I got stuff from a company that sort of help you with your skin.
Okay.
And but they're closed out now. But that sort of helped me with my skin.
Right.
And while I was in nursing, all through nursing, I found people who were almost like a surrogate mother to me.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, because my mother I was born, my mother was 16 and my daddy was 19. And I almost sort of worked hand in hand with my mother and not really like a daughter.
You kind of
But
grew
there
up
were-
with her, didn't you?
But there were always nurses who I was attached to, like Miss Wooten. Miss
Yeah.
Wooten used to go to a place in Carolina and get shirts and sweaters and all. She always bought me blouses back, that kind of stuff.
Nancy Wooten was nice, wasn't she?
And that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I was in Illinois, I found there was another lady I became attached to like a mother, and they would instruct you on different things. And even if they were in your business, you didn't know they was in your business. You didn't sass, you didn't assassin, that kind of stuff. And that's what my life has been like. And talking about my father's folks, out of all those children, 15 children, only 2 living out of that group.
Really?
And they are 2 girls, and they are 1 year younger than me, and the other one is 2 years younger than me.
Wow.
Okay, that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, her mother died when she was young. Her father married about 4 or 5 times, and every time he would marry, he'd bring all his children with him. They were not allowed to talk about half sisters and half that kind of stuff. And my brother right now didn't understand that some of his aunts were half aunts, half whatever have you. And the old word is that, and every wife he married died. And they claim, I don't know where this come from, if women died and that kept dying, the husband had some kind of like a white liver or whatever. Whatever
heard that.
I don't know what that meant.
Well, my husband's grandfather had a white liver then too, because he outlived 6 wives.
Yeah, but every time my grandfather would marry, he'd bring all his children with him.
Yes.
There was a close bond with them. And I said it was almost like an African thing. Because I came from a background that was always a mama and a daddy. This is one thing about the street. There are couples, there are very few single, they're old together or their husband has died out. And they watch after you, that kind of stuff. So I came from that year when people were together and the husband and the wives and that kind of stuff. And one of my grandfathers from my mother's side had the last child he had came to live. Her mother died. She came to live with us, with my mother, and so my father took her on like another child.
Okay.
Those kinds of relationships.
Yeah, the family stayed together.
The family
and
stayed
took care of each other.
But then all of a sudden they went wild, drugs and everything else.
Oh,
And after my grandfather died, people started divorcing and all kinds of things.
He was kind of the glue that held it together,
He was,
wasn't he?
and you better do right because he was quite curious. Okay, I think that's all. That's all I wanted to mention here.
Well, I have,
And right now I'm, I did just a little on computer. I'm learning. I'm going to that senior citizen area and doing computers. And last quarter I went to a course on how to buy stocks and bonds and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And but I keep up with it anyway. Anyway, I kept up with my stocks and bonds. I knew stuff. I gave stuff to the teacher because I do the Wall Street. I take the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
But I keep up with the Dow Jones average and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because we're getting. And my husband had an annuity, so I'm getting into the annuity bit, that kind of stuff. And that's how my secondary insurance came through the teachers area. You got to have insurance, darling. You got to, and after you have to get Medicare. The people who are handicapped may get Medicaid, but after you're 65, that's your primary insurance. Is Medicare, but they only pay 80% of bills. So you get another for 20% to pick up.
A supplement.
I pick up on it.
Right.
And all the time that I was in Buckhead home, all that time, you know how much my total I had to pay out of pocket?
How much?
$400.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, because you know that was thousands a day. Well, I had open heart surgery in 2007,
Uh-huh.
and the bill was $65,000,
Uh-huh.
and I had to pay $25 because my husband was military,
Uh-huh.
and that's allowed me to retire because we could afford health insurance,
Yeah.
and we knew we had good health insurance. But you're right.
But see,
That determines the rest of your life is your health insurance. A lot of young people don't know it.
they really don't
But
know.
it
They need
does.
to learn that. Because
Because things start breaking down, don't they, as we get older?
yeah, and you think about it. And as I told you, I met with these people who didn't have any insurance, and they had to meet a deadline. And I remember going back to my primary doctor. Her secretary had a knee replacement, and I was telling her about my exercises. She said, "What exercises?" Well, she couldn't go to a
She
place to
didn't
get
get
her.
what you got.
Uh-huh.
It's a shame. Can I take a picture of you?
Yes.
Well,
Do you have some more questions
I just
first?
have one
Okay,
more
go ahead.
question. What has it meant to you to be a nurse?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
But what has it meant to you? Both professionally and personally.
It means that health care should be a priority for everybody. That's when I made rounds to talk to them about health care. Because you must have good health care to live. Because there are a lot of things coming, Alzheimer's and all this stuff coming in. Cancer is rampant. It's always been rampant. People didn't talk about it.
Right.
TB has gone out of the way, but it's coming back. And TB was the same way. So you need, I think, in terms of understanding more for health care. And if you get an opportunity that you are able to tell people about health care. And right now, I talk about health care and I talk about insurances. You need insurance because a lot of people, one of my neighbors didn't have any. The old-fashioned word used to be burial insurance. Is not called that anymore. But have an insurance that you could have a funeral
Right.
and pay and get a cemetery plot. Because many years ago, the neighbors dug the hole and put the thing in. Now it has to be done through a company. But see, I didn't have to worry about that because my husband got the free area for his burying, and I have a plot. It's on top of each other. But the only thing I had to pay for is my name on the little placard, that kind of stuff. So everything for my burial is all set. The only thing they told me the only thing I have to pay for opening and closing the grave.
Yeah.
And she said, "Do you want to pay for it now?" I said, "No." That's what it means to me. It's the health of the nation.
Okay.
And I don't think people realize it. And as you start getting older, you need care because there are conditions that are not new, but they died and you didn't know.
Right.
You didn't know what they had. And if they had TB or something else, they would not discuss it because people would be afraid of them. Then here come AIDS. And AIDS didn't had a different name. They called it immune syndrome or something.
I don't.
They
Yeah.
didn't.
I don't
They did not know or didn't discuss it. It took that meant we was taking care of patients with all that stuff and didn't know about it, because nobody would talk about it. And so all that came into being. A lot of stuff has come into being, but the health of a nation, and I think about that, and security for insurances, and that always flashes to my mind because sitting in that rehabilitation unit, and I would have to wait to get on my machine and all this kind of stuff. And I would sit at the occupational table and then talk with those folks. They would just be talking. And then treatment, how they're treated. People are not good to patients sometimes. And they had problems with some of the nurses who would leave them half dry, who would not help them, that kind of stuff. And it's amazing how much mistreatment there may be in hospitals. And people stealing your belongings. And when I was at Buckhead, we had a place with a lock on it right at the table. And I remember one day the people from the state came to evaluate. That place is really up to date because they evaluate. And the guy asked me, was I pleased with how they did my valuables? I said, my sisters, I don't have any. They left me with $5.
She took everything and ran, huh?
No, and no. When people would visit me, they would leave me money. There was a
Right.
lady who was in my 2-bed area, whose husband was also there, a Caucasian woman, and she would go down to play bingo. So when they would leave me money, and I didn't go to play bingo because I was depressed to see those people sitting there with all leg falling off, I would give her some of my money
To
so
go
she
play
could play
bingo.
and she would bring me ice cream. That answers your question about
Yeah.
what it means health.
It means good health for everyone, that everyone deserves and has a right
They
to.
need a health. They need a health plan somehow. And I don't have any problem with. I don't know all of. I keep a list of that Affordable Care Act. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what it is. Who has the plan? But you know they've been trying to get health for people for years and
Yes.
years and years
Yes.
and years. Because insurance will not take people who have preconditions and that kind of stuff. Uh-huh.
And then they have these out of pocket or these maxes. So if you have a catastrophic illness, it can wipe you out.
That's what I know. Wipe
Even
you
if
out.
you have insurance.
I know it can.
It's not right.
Yeah.
People go bankrupt over health care. It's terrible.
They do. It is really. It is. I think it's awful for America, as rich as we are, with the people who do not have coverage.
It is.
And you don't realize it until when you go to these emergency rooms and people have to wait all day and there's a couple of hospitals in South Georgia about to close. And where are these people going?
I know it. It's a major problem.
It is something. It troubles me. And I say if I was physically able, I would get out there and campaign against some
You
people.
would be a great politician.
I think I'll be a politician.
You still can do that.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. I think our interview. Do you want to know how long we've talked today?
How long we've talked?
We have talked for 2 hours and 40 minutes, so almost 3 hours. So see how much you had to say today?
We are mouthy.
No, it was a great interview. I wouldn't call it mouthy. This was a very important interview.
And then you activated things I'd forgotten about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you again. I do appreciate it.